Hello everyone. Welcome to the What If Anime YouTube channel. Today, we are diving into an exciting new story that will take your imagination to the next level. Let's get started. What if Naruto and Ino disappear after Chunin exams and return after 20 years with their kids? Subscribe if you enjoyed the video. And also check the description. So let's begin the story. Blood trickled down Naruto Uzumaki's cheek as he staggered through the dense forest on the outskirts of Konoha. The final rounds of the Chunin exams had left him battered, exhausted, and, for the first time in his young life, utterly terrified. Not for himself, but for what he had just discovered. Slow down, idiot. Ino Yamanaka hissed, her platinum blonde hair disheveled as she struggled to keep pace with him. Her own uniform was torn, dirt-smudged evidence of the battle they'd barely escaped. We need to think this through. Naruto spun around, his blue eyes electric with panic. There's no time. If what we saw is true, his voice cracked. They're going to come for all of us. For the village, moonlight sliced through the canopy above them, casting dappled shadows across Ino's face as she caught up to him. The forest seemed to breathe around them, ancient trees creaking in the night wind. Something about their whispers seemed to echo Naruto's fears. I know what we saw, Ino replied, her voice steadier than her trembling hands. But running away isn't the answer. We need to tell the Hokage, tell our senseis. They won't believe us. Naruto slammed his fist against the tree trunk, splintering the bark. The pain grounded him, momentarily cutting through his panic. Or worse, they'll think it's connected to the Nine Tails. They'll lock me up before we can warn anyone. The revelation they'd stumbled upon during the chaos of the Chunin exams finale hung between them like a physical weight. While everyone had been focused on the invasion, while Sasuke had chased after Gaara, they had accidentally uncovered something far more sinister. An ancient plot that stretched back beyond the founding of the hidden villages. Then we gather evidence, Ino countered, grabbing his arm. Her touch was electric, desperate. We can't just vanish, Naruto. Think about Sakura, about your team. Think about my dad. The mention of Inoichi Yamanaka made her voice waver. Of all people, her father might actually believe them. His mind-reading abilities could confirm what they'd seen. Naruto's shoulders slumped, the adrenaline that had propelled him through the forest beginning to fade. In the distance, they could still see plumes of smoke rising from parts of Konoha, aftermath of the failed invasion. The village was vulnerable now. The perfect time for them to strike. We don't have time for evidence, he whispered, his voice unnaturally serious. Gone was the loud, brash ninja who proclaimed his dream of becoming Hokage. In his place stood a young man faced with an impossible choice. They're moving tonight. That's what the scroll said. Back in the village, Sakura Haruno paced anxiously outside the hospital room where Sasuke rested. The curse mark had taken its toll. And despite his brave face, she could see the pain etched into his features even as he slept. But it wasn't just Sasuke that had her emerald eyes clouded with worry. Any word about Naruto? She asked as Kakashi Hatake approached, his visible eye heavy with exhaustion. Her sensei shook his head, silver hair catching the sterile hospital lights. Nothing yet. He was seen helping civilians during the attack, but no one's reported seeing him in the last 6 hours. Sakura's stomach twisted into a knot. It wasn't like Naruto to disappear, especially not when Sasuke was injured. Despite their rivalry, the bond between them had grown undeniable during their time as Team 7. I'm worried, Kakashi-sensei, she admitted, hugging herself against the chill that had nothing to do with the hospital's air conditioning. He seemed strange after his match with Neji, like he'd seen something that scared him. Kakashi raised an eyebrow. Naruto Uzumaki scared? The boy who had faced down Zabuza without flinching? Who had fought Orochimaru in the Forest of Death? Did he say anything to you? Sakura shook her head, pink hair swaying. No, but I saw him talking with Ino after everything calmed down. They both looked I don't know haunted. Ino Yamanaka? Kakashi frowned. The two blondes weren't exactly close friends. Rivals for Sakura's friendship, perhaps, but not confidants. That's odd. A commotion down the hall drew their attention. Asuma Sarutobi was striding toward them, his usually laid-back demeanor replaced with tense purpose. Behind him, Shikamaru and Choji followed, concern evident in their expressions. Kakashi, Asuma called out. his voice gruff with worry. "Have you seen Ino?" "She's missing." The word hung in the air like a thundercloud. Missing. In the aftermath of an invasion, missing rarely meant anything good. "Naruto's gone too," Kakashi replied, his mind already racing through possibilities. "Since when?" "Last time anyone saw her was about 6 hours ago," Shikamaru supplied, his typically bored expression sharpened by concern. "She told Choji she needed to check something by the arena, but never came back." 6 hours, Kakashi repeated, exchanging a meaningful look with Asuma. Same time frame as Naruto's disappearance. Sakura felt her heart rate accelerate. "You don't think they're together?" Shikamaru finished for her, his tactical mind already connecting dots. "It's troublesome, but it's the most logical conclusion. The question is why?" Deep in the Yamanaka household, Inoichi sat perfectly still, surrounded by candles that cast long shadows across the meditation room. His consciousness stretched outward, seeking the familiar bright pulse that was his daughter's mind. As head of Konoha's intelligence division and a master of mind-based jutsu, if anyone could locate Ino through psychic connection, it was him. But where her presence should have been, a vibrant, willful flame among the tapestry of minds in the village, there was nothing. Not the cold void of death, but something different. A barrier, as if someone had specifically shielded her from his searching. His eyes snapped open, sweat beading on his forehead despite the room's cool temperature. "Impossible," he muttered to himself, rising on unsteady legs. The door slid open, revealing his wife's worried face. "Did you find her?" Inoichi shook his head, a chill settling in his bones. "Someone's blocking me." Someone with advanced knowledge of mental barriers. His wife's face paled. "Who would?" "I don't know," he admitted, reaching for his flak jacket. "But I need to speak with the Hokage immediately." As he rushed through the village toward the temporary administrative building, the Hokage Tower having suffered damage during the attack, Inoichi's mind raced through possibilities. Few shinobi possessed the skill to block a Yamanaka's mental probe. Fewer still would have reason to hide Ino from him, unless she was hiding herself. The thought stopped him cold in the middle of the street. His daughter was talented, yes, a prodigy in their clan's techniques. But she shouldn't have been capable of blocking him so completely. Not unless she'd found that scroll. The forbidden technique he locked away years ago, after realizing its potential dangers. A technique that could completely sever mental connections, rendering the user invisible to psychic detection. But why would Ino need such a technique? And what did Naruto Uzumaki have to do with it? The forest gave way to rockier terrain as Naruto and Ino climbed higher into the mountains bordering Fire Country. Dawn painted the horizon in violent streaks of orange and crimson, a bloody canvas that seemed to mirror the chaos they'd left behind. "We should have left a message," Ino said, breaking the tense silence that had fallen between them. "Something to let them know we're not dead?" Naruto supplied, his voice hollow. "Maybe it's better if they think we are." Ino stopped, grabbing his arm and spinning him around with surprising strength. Her pale blue eyes blazed with anger. "Don't you dare say that. Do you have any idea what that would do to them? To Sakura? To my parents?" The raw emotion in her voice penetrated the fog of fear that had enveloped Naruto since their discovery. For a moment, he saw not the bossy, confident Kunoichi who had always seemed so sure of herself, but a scared girl who was walking away from everything she'd ever known, just like him. "You're right," he conceded, the fight draining from him. "But we can't risk sending a message now. They have eyes everywhere. That's what the scroll warned about." Ancient eyes watching from the shadows. The mention of the scroll made Ino shiver visibly. They had found it by pure chance, or perhaps fate, during the chaos of the invasion. A hidden compartment revealed when a stray attack had demolished part of the arena wall. Inside, a scroll so old it crumbled at the edges, written in a cipher that should have been indecipherable. But Naruto had recognized the symbols instantly. They matched markings on his own seal, tiny details he'd observed during his rare moments of communion with the Nine Tails. And Ino, with her family's knowledge of mind techniques, had pieced together the rest. A conspiracy spanning centuries. A threat to not just Konoha, but all shinobi nations. And somehow, inexplicably, connected to both the Uzumaki clan's sealing techniques and the Yamanaka clan's mind abilities. They were the only two who could possibly understand what they'd found. And that made them targets. "We need help," Ino said finally, her practical nature reasserting itself. "We can't fight this alone." Naruto nodded, his gaze drifting to the horizon, beyond Fire Country's borders. "I know someone who might believe us. Someone who knows about ancient threats and village secrets." "Who?" "Jiraiya of the Sannin," Naruto replied, determination hardening his features. "He was there after my match. Said he wanted to train me. If anyone will listen without immediately thinking we're crazy, it's him." Ino considered this, weighing their limited options. "And if he doesn't believe us?" A grim smile twisted Naruto's lips, so unlike his usual carefree grin that it transformed his entire face. "Then we're on our own. But either way, we can't go back to Konoha. Not until we understand what we're dealing with." The weight of their decision pressed down on them as they continued their journey. Two teenagers carrying a burden meant for much older shoulders. Neither spoke the fear that haunted them both, that they might never see their home again. 3 days passed in Konoha like a fever dream. The village mourned its dead, began repairs, and tried to make sense of the new political landscape following the third Hokage's death. Amid the chaos, the disappearance of 2 genin, even ones as notable as the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki and the Yamanaka heiress, should have been a secondary concern. But Kakashi Hatake knew better. They didn't leave under duress, he reported to the emergency council that had formed in the Hokage's absence. Around the table sat the heads of Konoha's most prominent clans, along with key Jonin instructors. My Nikin tracked their scent to the northern forest border. No signs of struggle, no evidence of pursuit. So they left willingly, Shikaku Nara, Shikamaru's father, stated flatly. His sharp eyes narrowed in thought. The question is why? Inoichi Yamanaka remained silent, his usual composed demeanor fractured by exhaustion and worry. 3 days of continuous mental searching had left him drained, yet no closer to locating his daughter. "There's more," Kakashi continued reluctantly. They weren't alone when they crossed the border. A third sen joined them, Jiraiya of the Sannin. This revelation sent a ripple of murmurs around the table. Jiraiya was respected, powerful, but also unpredictable, known for his wandering lifestyle and intelligence network as much as his legendary fighting prowess. "Has anyone been able to contact Jiraiya?" demanded Danzo Shimura, his visible eye cold with calculation. As always, the elder councilman's interest in Naruto made Kakashi uneasy. "No," Asuma replied, lighting a cigarette despite the formal setting. No one had the heart to reprimand him, which is unusual. Jiraiya typically maintains some communication with the village, especially in crisis situations. Danzo's fingers drummed a slow rhythm against the table. The Nine-Tails Jinchuriki vanishes with the Sannin known for his spy network, along with the daughter of our intelligence division head. This is not coincidence. Are you suggesting my daughter and Jiraiya-sama have absconded with the Nine-Tails? Inoichi's voice was dangerously quiet, a kunai wrapped in silk. "I'm suggesting," Danzo replied evenly, "that we consider all possibilities, including that they may have discovered something they weren't meant to know." The room fell silent at this, each person present acutely aware of Konoha's labyrinthine history of secrets. The village hidden in the leaves was also the village built on hidden truths, some of which were buried for good reason. Whatever the case, Shikaku interjected, breaking the tense silence. "We need to focus on the village's immediate needs. Without a Hokage, we're vulnerable. Finding 2 genin, even important ones, must be secondary to securing Konoha's future." Kakashi watched as heads nodded around the table, the practical wisdom of Shikaku's words settling over them. But he couldn't shake the nagging sense that they were missing something critical. Naruto would never abandon the village without a compelling reason. And for Ino Yamanaka to join him? It defied all logic unless the threat they perceived was genuine. "I request permission to continue the search," Kakashi said, his visible eye fixed on Danzo, who seemed poised to object. "A small team, operating discreetly. If Naruto and Ino are in danger, or if they know of a danger to Konoha, we need to find them." Before Danzo could respond, Inoichi spoke up. "I second this. And I volunteer to provide any resources the search team needs." Shikaku sighed, recognizing the determination in both men's eyes. "Very well. Kakashi, you have 1 week. After that, all resources must be redirected to village security and the Hokage selection process. As the council meeting disbanded, Kakashi found himself approached by a somber-faced Irika Yumino. The academy teacher's concern for Naruto had always run deeper than professional obligation. "Do you really think they're safe?" Irika asked, his voice low to avoid being overheard. Kakashi considered the question carefully. If they're with Jiraiya, physically yes. But something drove them to leave. Irika finished the thought. Something frightened them enough to abandon everything they care about. The observation hung between them, unspoken but understood. What could possibly frighten Naruto Uzumaki, the boy who faced every challenge with unflinching determination? What secret could be terrible enough to drive away the loudest, most ambitious genin Konoha had produced in a generation? Miles away, in a small cavern hidden deep within a nondescript mountain range, Naruto sat cross-legged before a circle of ceiling tags. His face, usually animated with expression, had settled into intense concentration. Sweat beaded on his forehead as chakra flickered visibly around his hands. Not the usual blue, but a deeper violet tinge with crimson threads. Across from him, Ino mirrored his posture, her own chakra manifesting as a pale lavender glow. Between them, Jiraiya observed with uncharacteristic seriousness, his usual jovial demeanor replaced by the focused intensity that reminded them he was, indeed, one of the legendary Sannin. Again, he instructed, making a minute adjustment to one of the ceiling tags. "Naruto, draw from your core, not from the nine tails. Ino, extend your consciousness to the perimeter of the seal, but no further." Both teenagers nodded, redoubling their concentration. The air in the cavern grew heavy with chakra, pressing against their skin like an incoming storm. "Master Jiraiya," Ino said through gritted teeth, maintaining her focus on the complex technique they were attempting. "Do you think they're looking for us?" The white-haired Sannin's face softened momentarily. For all their determination and discovery, they were still children, barely 13, thrust into circumstances that would challenge even seasoned jonin. Without question, he replied honestly. "Kakashi won't give up easily. And your father," he glanced at Ino. "A Yamanaka separated from his daughter is a force to be reckoned with." Guilt flashed across Ino's features, nearly breaking her concentration. The delicate web of chakra between her and Naruto wavered. "Focus," Jiraiya reminded her gently. "Regret is a luxury we can't afford right now. Not with what's at stake." They had shown him the scroll, or rather, what remained of it after they'd memorized its contents and destroyed the physical evidence. At first, he'd been skeptical, suspecting a prank or misunderstanding, but certain details had made his blood run cold. Information that connected too perfectly with his own decades of research. Patterns that confirmed his worst suspicions. An ancient cult, predating the hidden villages. A group that had manipulated events from the shadows, nudging the shinobi world towards some grand, terrible purpose. The Nine Tails attack 13 years ago, the Uchiha massacre. Even the recent invasion. All connected, all orchestrated, and now, accelerating toward a culmination that would reshape their world entirely. "We need to be stronger," Naruto said, breaking the silence. His eyes, when they opened, had a feral quality, not the red of the Nine Tails, but something else, a determination that burned so brightly it was almost painful to witness. "Whatever they're planning, we have to be ready to stop it," Jiraiya nodded gravely. "That's why we're here. That's why we can't go back yet." His gaze moved between the two young shinobi who had stumbled upon a conspiracy he himself had only glimpsed pieces of during decades of intelligence work. "The technique you're learning now is just the beginning. Where we're going, what we'll need to do it will take years of preparation." "Years?" Ino's concentration broke completely, her chakra dissipating like morning mist. "But the village, our friends, they're in danger now." "Not immediate danger," Jiraiya corrected. "What you discovered points to a plan that's been in motion for centuries. The final phase isn't set to begin for some time." He paused, weighing how much to share. "But you're right that we need to warn Konoha. Just not directly." He reached into his robes and withdrew a small toad, no larger than his palm. The creature blinked sleepily, then focused with surprising intelligence on the three humans. "Gamakuro here will deliver a message to Fukasaku at Mount Mayaboku. From there, It will reach certain individuals in Konoha, ones I trust implicitly. Jiraiya's expression grew distant, not enough to reveal everything, but enough to put them on guard. To make them look deeper, Naruto studied the tiny toad with newfound appreciation. And us? What do we do while they're investigating? Jiraiya's face hardened, the legendary shinobi fully present in a way few ever witnessed. We prepare. We train. We gather allies from places beyond the reach of those who would hunt you. Hunt us? Ino echoed, a chill running down her spine despite the cavern's warmth. Make no mistake, Jiraiya said solemnly. Once they realize what you know, what you might become capable of, they will never stop searching. The technique you're learning now, binding your chakra signatures to appear as ordinary civilians, is just your first line of defense. The weight of his words settled over them. This wasn't a mission with a defined endpoint. This was a new life. A secret war. How long? Naruto asked, his voice barely above a whisper. How long until we can go home? Jiraiya's silence was answer enough. Outside the cavern, night fell over the mountains, stars emerging like distant watchers. In Konoha, teams of ANBU continued their search, unaware that their quarry had already moved beyond their reach. And deeper still, ancient eyes stirred, sensing disruption and carefully laid plans. The pieces had been scattered. The board reset, and two young shinobi, never meant to be players in this deadly game, had unwittingly become its central figures. The vanishing act was complete. Now, the true challenge began. Dawn broke over Konoha like liquid gold, spilling across the carved faces that watched over the village. 6 faces now. The monument expanded to accommodate the village's growth and changes. The weathered stone visages of the first, second, and third Hokages remained steadfast, joined by Tsunade, Kakashi, and finally, Konoha's current leader. Sasuke Uchiha stood at the window of the Hokage's office, his mismatched eyes, one onyx black, one ring purple, reflecting the sunrise. At 33, the last Uchiha cut an imposing figure. His sharp features had hardened with age, etched with the countless battles and burdens he'd shouldered. The flowing white Hokage robes seemed at odds with his natural intensity, yet he wore them with undeniable authority. "You're brooding again," came a familiar voice from the doorway. Sasuke didn't turn. He didn't need to. "I'm thinking, Sakura." "There's a difference." Sakura Uchiha strode into the office, her footsteps confident and deliberate. The years had transformed the once timid girl into Konoha's most formidable medical ninja, surpassing even her mentor, Tsunade. Her pink hair was cropped short for practicality, and a diamond-shaped seal adorned her forehead, a testament to her mastery of the strength of 100 technique. The white coat of the hospital director swished around her ankles as she approached her husband. "Thinking about what?" she asked, though the date on the calendar provided answer enough. Sasuke's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. 20 years today. The weight of those 3 words hung between them. 20 years since the chaos of the Chunin exams. 20 years since Orochimaru's failed invasion. 20 years since Sasuke had awakened in a hospital bed to learn that his loud-mouthed teammate had vanished without a trace. "You still think they're alive," Sakura said. "Not a question. Naruto is too stubborn to die," Sasuke replied, the ghost of a smirk flickering across his face before vanishing again. "And Yamanaka was resourceful." Sakura moved beside him, their shoulders nearly touching as they gazed out at the village. Konoha had changed dramatically in 2 decades. The skyline now featured modern buildings alongside traditional architecture, a physical manifestation of how the shinobi world had evolved while maintaining its roots. The Hokage Tower itself had been rebuilt twice, once after Pain's devastating attack and again following the 4th Shinobi World War. "The council wants to officially declare them deceased," Sakura said quietly. "For closure. For record-keeping." Sasuke's hand clenched at his side, the only visible reaction to this information. After all this time, what difference would it make? It would matter to their families. Sakura turned, leaning against the window frame to study her husband's profile. "Inoichi-san has never stopped searching, you know. Even after retiring from intelligence." A muscle worked in Sasuke's jaw. "And what about you? Do you believe they're dead?" The question pierced through Sakura's professional demeanor, reaching the girl who had once been part of Team 7. Her emerald eyes clouded momentarily. I believe, she said carefully, that if anyone could survive 20 years off the grid, it would be Konoha's #1 unpredictable ninja. The faintest smile tugged at Sasuke's lips. Then the council can wait. On the other side of the village, the morning routine at the Nara household unfolded with its usual blend of ordered chaos. Shikamaru Nara, his hair now sporting distinguished streaks of gray at the temples, nursed a cup of strong black tea while reviewing intelligence reports. As Konoha's chief strategist and the Hokage's right hand, his mornings began earlier than he'd ever imagined possible in his youth. "Dad!" A voice like a thunderclap shattered the peace. "Shikadai stole my weapons pouch again." Shikamaru didn't look up from his reports. "Tamaki, you're a Jonin? If you can't keep track of your own equipment, perhaps I should recommend a demotion." His daughter stomped into view, her blonde hair pulled into 4 spiky ponytails, a style inherited from her mother. At 17, Tamaki Nara was the spitting image of Temari, from her teal eyes to her fierce temperament. Only the lazy slouch of her shoulders when off-duty betrayed her Nara heritage. "That's not the point," she huffed, snatching an apple from the fruit bowl. "It's the principle. He's a little pest." "I'm 14, not a pest," came another voice as Shikadai sauntered in, hands stuffed in pockets in a gesture so reminiscent of his father that it was almost comical. Unlike his sister, Shikadai was Nara through and through, from his perpetually bored expression to his pineapple-styled hair. "And I only took it because she'd borrowed my shogi set without asking." Shikamaru pinched the bridge of his nose. "Troublesome," he muttered, the familiar word worn smooth with decades of use. "Tamaki, you're leading a border patrol at noon." "Shikadai, you have academy duties. Sort this out, or I'll have your mother deal with it when she returns from Suna." The siblings exchanged alarmed glances. Their mother's conflict resolution typically involved hurricane-force winds and no small amount of shouting. The weapons pouch materialized in Tamaki's hand almost instantly. "Found it," Shikadai announced with suspicious innocence. A knock at the door saved Shikamaru from further family diplomacy. He rose, recognizing the particular rhythm. 3 sharp raps, a pause, then 2 more. Only one person knocked that way. Ino's father stood on the threshold, looking every one of his 70 years. Inoichi Yamanaka's once vibrant blonde hair had faded to silver, and deep lines etched his face like a weathered map. But his eyes, those remained sharp, piercing, filled with the same determination that had driven him for 2 decades. "Inoichi-san," Shikamaru greeted him with genuine respect, stepping aside to let the elder enter. "Tea? No time," Inoichi replied, his voice roughened by age but no less authoritative. "I need you to come with me." Now, something in the older man's tone sent a jolt of alertness through Shikamaru's typically unflappable demeanor. He'd known Inoichi his entire life, had watched the man transform from a pillar of Konoha's intelligence community to a haunted father consumed by his daughter's disappearance. In recent years, as age forced him to step back from active searching, Inoichi had grown quieter, more resigned. Today, though, fire blazed in those faded blue eyes. "What's happened?" Shikamaru asked, already reaching for his flak jacket. Inoichi glanced at the curious teenagers before lowering his voice. "One of my sensing barriers was triggered last night. The one at the northern border." Shikamaru froze, jacket half on. The northern border, where Naruto and Ino had last been tracked 20 years ago. "That barrier has been triggered before," he said cautiously, unwilling to feed false hope. "Weather, wildlife, traveling merchants, not like this." Inoichi's hand trembled slightly as he withdrew a small scroll from his robes. This was different. 2 chakra signatures briefly exposed when they crossed the perimeter. His voice caught. One of them matched Ino's frequency. Not perfectly, it was altered, muted somehow, but unmistakable to me. Shikamaru's analytical mind raced through possibilities. After 20 years of false leads and disappointed searches, he'd learned to temper hope with skepticism. But Inoichi's abilities, especially regarding his daughter's chakra signature, were legendary. If he claimed a match, the other signature? He asked, keeping his voice steady. Inoichi's expression shifted, becoming more guarded. Powerful. Controlled. But with underlying complexities. Reminiscent of Naruto's, but again, altered. "Have you informed the Hokage?" "Not yet." Inoichi's jaw set stubbornly. I came to you first. Sasuke has complicated feelings where Naruto is concerned. That was putting it mildly. For years after the disappearance, Sasuke had oscillated between cold dismissal of his former teammate and obsessive searches. Eventually, as responsibilities mounted and the village's needs demanded his attention, the searches had become less frequent. But Shikamaru knew the Uchiha had never truly given up, had never accepted Naruto's absence as permanent. We need more than triggered barriers, Shikamaru said, mind already formulating strategies. If they're truly back after all this time, why now? And why secretly cross the border instead of coming directly to the village? Inoichi's weathered face hardened. 20 years ago, my daughter and Naruto Uzumaki fled this village in fear. Whatever drove them away might still exist. They could be testing the waters, assessing whether it's safe to return. The implications hung heavy in the air. What could have terrified two genin so thoroughly that they'd abandon everything they knew? And if that threat remained, what did it mean for Konoha now? Tamaki, Shikamaru called to his daughter, decision made. Inform Captain Hyuga that you'll be delayed. Family matter. Shikadai, tell your sensei you'll miss morning classes. The siblings exchanged surprised glances but knew better than to question their father's serious tone. Where are we going? Shikadai asked, already moving to collect his gear. Shikamaru buckled on his weapons pouch, feeling the familiar weight of responsibility settle across his shoulders. To see the Hokage, he replied. And then, perhaps, to find some ghosts. The forests outside Konoha teemed with morning life, birds calling, insects buzzing, leaves rustling in the gentle breeze. To the untrained ear, it was merely nature's symphony. To Hinata Hyuga, it was a carefully orchestrated deception. 2 o'clock, approximately 800 meters, she murmured, her Byakugan activated beneath the distinctive ANBU mask she wore. Though she had retired from active duty years ago, certain missions still required her unique abilities. Beside her, her cousin nodded almost imperceptibly. Neji Hyuga, who had nearly died during the Fourth Shinobi World War before a desperate medical intervention saved him, served as commander of Konoha's ANBU forces. His own mask, carved to resemble a hawk, concealed the scars that traced the right side of his face. Movement pattern? He asked, voice barely audible. Deliberate, Hinata replied, her enhanced vision tracking their quarry through layers of forest and stone. 2 individuals. Adult-sized. One carrying something. No, someone. A child, I think. This detail caused a ripple of tension through the 4-person squad concealed among the ancient trees. Children meant civilians, or worse, hostages. They're maintaining a steady course toward the village. Hinata continued, veins bulging around her eyes as she pushed her Byakugan to its limits. But they're moving too directly, too purposefully. They know exactly where they're going. Neji raised a hand, signaling the squad to hold position. Chakra signatures? Hinata frowned behind her mask. That's what's strange. I can see their physical forms clearly, but their chakra networks are muffled. Like looking at the sun through heavy clouds. There's power there, but it's being actively suppressed. Genjutsu? Suggested one of the other ANBU, a sensotype who had been straining his own abilities without success. No, Hinata replied with quiet certainty. This is something else. A sealing technique, perhaps. Advanced? I've never seen anything like it. Neji absorbed this information silently. 20 years as an ANBU captain had taught him to trust Hinata's observations implicitly. If she couldn't clearly read their chakra signatures, it meant they were dealing with shinobi of exceptional skill. New orders, he decided. We observe only. No engagement unless they demonstrate hostile intent. All circle around to their projected path. Mantis, fall back to secondary position and prepare Messenger Hawk for the Hokage. As the squad dispersed with fluid efficiency, Neji remained beside his cousin, both Byakugan users tracking the mysterious travelers. What are you thinking? Hinata asked softly, knowing her cousin's analytical mind would be processing possibilities. Neji's mask concealed his expression, but his voice carried a rare note of uncertainty. 20 years ago today, 2 genin vanished from Konoha. Today, 2 chakra-concealed individuals approach with purpose. He paused. The timing seemed significant. Hinata's breath caught. Unlike some, she had never fully accepted that Naruto was gone forever. Something in her heart, the same part that had recognized his indomitable spirit even as a shy academy student, refused to believe he could be extinguished so easily. If it is them, she whispered, why return now? After so long? That, Niji replied grimly, is what concerns me most. In a small clearing 6 kilometers from Konoha's main gate, a girl of about 15 years stood with her hands on her hips, surveying their surroundings with undisguised fascination. Her long blonde hair fell in a wild cascade down her back, shimmering with hints of gold that seemed almost unnatural in the dappled forest light. Bright blue eyes, startlingly intense, darted from tree to tree, taking in every detail with hungry curiosity. So this is fire country, she said, her voice carrying a strange accent, as if she'd learned the language perfectly but from someone with their own unique inflection. Doesn't look that special to me. Minako, came a warning voice from behind her. Maintain sensory discipline. The girl, Minako, rolled her eyes with teenage exasperation. We're literally in the middle of nowhere, Mom. Who's going to hear me? The squirrels? Stepping into the clearing was a woman whose very presence seemed to command the forest around her. Tall and lithe, with platinum blonde hair pulled into a practical braid that reached the middle of her back. At 33, Ino Yamanaka carried herself with the deadly grace of a seasoned kunoichi. Every movement precise, controlled, yet fluid. The 2 decades away from Konoha had transformed the once vain girl into a woman of striking beauty and unmistakable deadliness. Lines of fatigue etched her face, evidence of their long journey. She wore nondescript travel clothes, muted greens and browns designed to blend with the forest. But the quality and customization spoke of resources and preparation. Most notably, she carried no visible forehead protector or village insignia of any kind. Squirrels, ANBU patrols, automated sensing barriers, Ino replied crisply. Take your pick. This close to the village, we assume we're being watched at all times. Minako sighed dramatically but obediently closed her eyes, forming a familiar hand sign. Immediately, her wild chakra, which had been leaking outward in excited pulses, retracted, folding inward until it was barely detectable even to her mother's trained senses. Better, Ino acknowledged with a tight nod. Her gaze drifted toward the tree line, concern flickering across her features. They should have been here by now. As if summoned by her words, branches rustled, and 2 more figures emerged into the clearing. The first was a boy who appeared slightly younger than Minako, perhaps 13 or 14. Where the girl was all vibrant energy and golden light, he moved with deliberate calm, his features composed in a mask of careful neutrality. Dark hair fell in a neat ponytail down his back, and calculating blue eyes, the same shade as Minako's, surveyed the clearing with methodical precision. Perimeter is secure, mother, he reported, his formal tone at odds with his youth. No active surveillance detected within 300 meters. Good work, Shikaku, Ino replied, reaching out to brush an invisible piece of lint from his shoulder. A rare display of maternal affection that the boy tolerated with stoic dignity. The final figure stepped into the clearing, and the forest itself seemed to hush in response. Even after 20 years, there was no mistaking Naruto Uzumaki. The gangly, orange-clad boy had become a man of imposing presence, tall and powerfully built, with the lean muscle of someone who lived by combat and constant movement. His once bright blonde hair had darkened slightly with age, now streaked with hints of red that caught the sunlight like copper wire. 3 whisker marks still adorned each cheek, though they were partially obscured by stubble from days of travel. Gone was the garish orange jumpsuit, replaced by practical dark clothing with subtle reinforcement at vital points. Like Ino, he wore no village symbols or identification. Most striking was the complex network of seal markings visible at his wrists and throat, iridescent patterns that seemed to shift and pulse with his breathing. But it was his eyes that had changed most profoundly. Still blue, still capable of warmth, but now holding the weight of 2 decades of exile, of secrets kept and burdens carried. Eyes that had seen too much, that had been forced to look too long into darkness. In his arms, he carried a small, sleeping child, a boy of perhaps 4 or 5 years, with a shock of bright red hair. The child's face, peaceful in slumber, showed the same whisker marks as his father. We're being watched, Naruto stated simply, his voice deeper and more measured than the boisterous shouts of his youth. Southeast quadrant, approximately 800 meters. 2 Byakugan users, plus support team. Ino nodded unsurprised. Hinata? Most likely, Naruto confirmed, a flicker of something. Regret, perhaps, crossing his face before disappearing behind practice neutrality. Her chakra signature is distinctive. Minako bounced on her heels, excitement overriding caution. So they know we're here? Are we going to the village now? Will I finally get to see where you grew up? Will, Minako, her younger brother interrupted with a long-suffering sigh. Protocol. The girl stuck out her tongue at him but fell silent, though she continued to fidget with barely contained energy. Naruto carefully transferred the sleeping child to Ino, who cradled him with practiced ease. The exchange was wordless, efficient, the movement of partners who had operated in sync for many years. They'll report to the Hokage, Naruto said, rolling his shoulders as if preparing for combat. Depending on who holds the position now, we might be welcomed, arrested, or attacked on sight. Dad, Minako protested, her young face scrunching in confusion. They're your friends. You're home. Why would they attack us? A shadow passed over Naruto's features. Because we'd been gone a very long time, Mina. Because they don't know why we left, or why we've returned. Because they have no reason to trust us. They'll trust you once you explain, the girl insisted with the absolute confidence of youth. Once you tell them about the Guardians, about what you've been doing all these years. Ino and Naruto exchanged a look laden with unspoken communication. The kind that only comes from decades of shared struggles and secrets. Let's hope so, Ino murmured, adjusting her hold on the sleeping child. But first, we need to establish contact properly. On our terms. Naruto nodded, then bit his thumb, drawing blood. The hand signs he formed were swift, practiced, but not the familiar sequence for his once signature summons. These were different, more complex. Summoning jutsu, he intoned, pressing his palm to the ground. Smoke billowed, clearing to reveal not a toad, but a small, russet-colored fox with 3 swishing tails. The creature shook itself, then fixed intelligent amber eyes on Naruto. Kurama Kid has returned to the leaf nest, the fox observed, voice surprisingly melodious for such a small creature. After so many seasons, hello Akiko, Naruto greeted the fox with genuine warmth. I need you to deliver a message to the Hokage of Konoha. The fox's ears perked forward with interest. Which word bundle shall I carry? From inside his jacket, Naruto produced a small scroll sealed with an unfamiliar emblem. Either Uzumaki spiral nor any recognized village symbol, but a complex design that incorporated elements of both alongside other, stranger markings. This one, he said, securing it to a slender harness around the fox's middle. For the Hokage's eyes only. Wait for a response. The fox sniffed the scroll, then Naruto's hand, and finally turned its bright gaze on the children. The kids have grown since I last saw them. The red one smells of storm chakra. He's been developing, Ino said carefully, glancing down at the sleeping child in her arms. Which is part of why we've returned. Akiko's tails swished in acknowledgement. I will run swift, returned swifter. With that, the small fox darted into the underbrush, disappearing so completely it might have never existed. Minako watched the fox go with visible disappointment. I wanted to go with her. See the village. Soon enough, Naruto assured her, ruffling her blonde hair, an automatic gesture that earned him a teenager's scowl. If things go well. And if they don't? Asked Shikaku, ever the pragmatist. Naruto's gaze hardened, scanning the distant trees where Konoha's ANBU observed them. Then we implement contingency plan Delta and disappear again. Ino laid a hand on his arm, a steadying touch. It won't come to that. My father is still alive. I felt him when we crossed the barrier last night. He'll know it's us. A lot can change in 20 years, Naruto replied grimly. People, loyalties, priorities. He glanced down at the sleeping red-haired child. We have to be prepared for any outcome. Minako looked between her parents, her earlier excitement dimming. For all her youthful exuberance, she wasn't naive. She'd grown up in hidden compounds and remote villages, raised on constant vigilance and contingency plans. The children of Naruto Uzumaki and Ino Yamanaka had never known a true home, had never experienced the safety most took for granted. I think, she said softly, uncharacteristically serious, they'll be glad you're alive. whatever else happens. Naruto's expression softened as he looked at his daughter. In her optimism, her irrepressible spirit, he sometimes saw echoes of who he had once been, before the scroll, before the discovery that had changed everything. "We'll know soon enough," he said, glancing up at the sky. The morning was advancing, the sun climbing higher. In Konoha, daily routines would be in full swing, missions assigned, training sessions conducted, lives continuing as they had for years. Lives that had continued without them for 2 decades. And now, Ino announced, brisk and practical as ever, "We wait." The Hokage's office erupted into controlled chaos the moment Shikamaru and Inoichi arrived with their news. 2 decades of diplomatic experience couldn't entirely mask Sasuke's reaction. A flash of raw emotion quickly contained, but visible to those who knew him best. "Repeat that," he commanded, standing so abruptly that his chair skidded backward. "Exactly as you experienced it." Inoichi stepped forward, back straight despite his years. At approximately 0200 hours, the northeastern sensing barrier registered 2 chakra signatures crossing into fire country territory. One matched my daughter's baseline frequency by approximately 73%. Enough variation to suggest substantial change or deliberate suppression, but the fundamental pattern was unmistakable. "And the second signature?" Sasuke pressed, his mismatched eyes intense. Inoichi hesitated, glancing at Shikamaru before continuing. "Complex. Powerful. Multi-layered in a way that's consistent with Jinchuriki patterns. But again, heavily suppressed." Sasuke's hand clenched on the edge of his desk, wood creaking under the pressure. "Where are they now?" "Captain Hirda's team has them under surveillance approximately 6 kilometers northwest of the main gate," Shikamaru supplied, having received an update via Messenger Hawk en route to the Hokage's office. 4 individuals, 2 adults, 2 adolescents. Maintaining position, no hostile actions. 4? Sakura echoed, having joined them minutes after their arrival. "Who are the others?" The implication hung in the air, unspoken but undeniable. If the 2 adults were indeed Naruto and Ino, unknown, Shikamaru replied evenly. "Captain Hirda reports limited visibility of chakra networks. Some kind of suppression technique is in use, but visual confirmation suggests 2 young people, likely early to mid-teens, traveling with the adults. Their children," Inoichi whispered, the words hitting the room like explosive tags. The elder Yamanaka's composure cracked momentarily, decades of grief and hope warring in his weathered face. "After all this time, my grandchildren." Sasuke paced to the window, a predator contained in too small a space. "We need confirmation. Concrete identification before we..." A sharp rap at the window interrupted him. All eyes turned to see a small, 3-tailed fox perched on the sill, a scroll secured to its back. For a moment, no one moved. Konoha had no contracted fox summons, hadn't since the era of Madara Uchiha. Yet here was an unmistakable messenger, bearing what could only be communication from their mysterious visitors. Sasuke's jaw tightened. With deliberate control, he unlatched the window. The fox hopped inside, landing gracefully on his desk and fixing amber eyes on the Hokage with unsettling intelligence. "Message for the fire shadow," it announced in a melodious voice. "From the guardian of the spiral path, and the keeper of hidden minds." Sakura inhaled sharply. Poetic titles, but the meaning was clear enough. Spiral, Uzumaki. Hidden minds, Yamanaka. The fox continued, "I am instructed to deliver this to the Hokage's hand alone and await response." Sasuke's expression remained impassive as he untied the scroll from the fox's harness. The seal that secured it, unfamiliar yet containing elements he recognized, pulsed faintly with chakra as his fingers touched it. A security measure, Shikamaru observed. Blood-keyed, most likely. Indeed, the seal remained stubbornly intact until Sasuke, with a barely perceptible sigh, bit his thumb and smeared a drop of blood across it. The markings flared briefly, then dissolved, allowing the scroll to unroll. The message inside was brief, written in a steady hand that bore little resemblance to Naruto's childhood scrawl. To the current Hokage of Konohagakure, after 20 years of necessary absence, we seek temporary sanctuary within the village boundaries for ourselves and our children. We bring critical intelligence regarding a threat to all shinobi nations, the same threat that necessitated our departure 2 decades ago. We request the secure meeting with village leadership, including Yamanaka and Noichi, to explain our actions and share what we have learned. As proof of identity and good faith, the reverse of this scroll contains a seal formula known only to Jiraiya of the Sannin and his final apprentice. We await your response at the coordinates where this messenger found you. Uzumaki Naruto, Yamanaka Ino. Sasuke flipped the scroll to reveal an intricate sealing formula inscribed on the reverse. A complex arrangement that even his Sharingan struggled to fully comprehend. But certain elements were unmistakable. Components of the Flying Thunder God technique, fragments of the 8 trigram seal, and modifications that could only have come from a true seal master. Without a word, he passed the scroll to Sakura, who read it quickly before handing it to Inoichi. The elder Yamanaka's hands trembled visibly as he absorbed its contents. "It's them," Inoichi said, voice rough with emotion. "That's Ino's handwriting. Matured, refined, but unmistakably hers. The seal is legitimate," Sasuke confirmed, his own voice carefully controlled. "Only someone trained by Jiraiya could have created it." Shikamaru crossed his arms, mind already racing through implications and strategies. After 20 years of silence, they returned today with warnings of a threat and children in tow, his sharp gaze fixed on Sasuke. "The timing can't be coincidence." "What do you mean?" Sakura asked, though her analytical mind was already connecting the same dots. "Today marks exactly 20 years since they disappeared," Shikamaru elaborated. "Either they've been counting the days in exile, or something significant is attached to this anniversary." Sasuke turned to the fox, which had been waiting patiently throughout their discussion. "Tell them this. The Hokage will meet them at sundown, at Training Ground 7. They may bring their children, but all suppression techniques must be deactivated before entering the village. An escort will be provided." The fox's head tilted curiously. "The fire's shadow has familiar scent to the guardian. Are you kin clan to him?" A ripple of surprise passed through the room. Even the fox didn't know Sasuke's identity, suggesting that Naruto hadn't shared much about his former life with his summons. "We were teammates," Sasuke replied after a moment, something indefinable flickering in his mismatched eyes. "Long ago." The fox's tail swished as it absorbed this information. "I will carry your words to the guardian and the keeper." With a graceful leap, it disappeared through the still open window. Silence filled the Hokage's office as the fox's departure left them with the reality of what had just transpired. After 20 years of questions, of searching, of gradual acceptance of lost, Naruto and Ino were alive. Not only alive, but returning, with children, with warnings, with mysteries still unsolved. "I want a full security detail," Sasuke said finally, turning to Shikamaru. "EMBU presence, but discreet. No hostile positioning." "Understood," Shikamaru nodded. "Medical team on standby?" "Yes," Sakura interjected before Sasuke could respond. "I'll oversee it personally." Her professional tone didn't quite mask the emotions beneath. 20 years had dulled but never eliminated the ache of losing her teammates. First Sasuke to vengeance, then Naruto to mystery. "Inoichi-san," Sasuke addressed the elder Yamanaka, his formal tones softening slightly. "Your presence was specifically requested. However, given the personal nature of this reunion, I will maintain professional composure," Inoichi assured him, straightening his shoulders with dignified determination. "Whatever caused my daughter to leave, whatever brings her back now, Konoha's security remains paramount." Sasuke studied the older man briefly before nodding in acceptance. "Until sundown, this information remains classified. We don't announce their return until we understand why they left." As the meeting dispersed, Sasuke remained at the window, gazing in the direction where, just 6 kilometers away, the friend he had once considered a brother waited with unknown children and 20 years of secrets. Despite his composed exterior, a storm of emotions churned beneath the Hokage's formal demeanor. Anger at the abandonment. Relief at the proof of life. Suspicion at the convenient timing. And deeper still, a feeling he was reluctant to name even to himself. The fierce, consuming need to see with his own eyes that Naruto Uzumaki still existed in this world. The Fox Messenger had called him guardian of the spiral path. What had the dead last of their academy class become during these missing decades? What had transformed the loud, orange-clad genin into someone who communicated through formal scrolls and fox summons? More importantly, What threat could have been powerful enough to drive away Konoha's most determinedly loyal shinobi for 20 years? Sasuke suspected he wouldn't like the answer. The sun dipped toward the horizon, painting the sky in deepening shades of amber and crimson. In the forest clearing, Naruto ceased his methodical inspection of their supplies to glance westward, gauging the time. "They're coming," he stated, rising from his crouched position with fluid grace. Not a question, but a certainty. As if he could sense the approaching shinobi long before they came into view. Ino nodded, finishing the complex braid she was weaving into Minako's wild blonde hair. Diplomatic escort, most likely. Standard protocol. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency, securing the final strands. "There. Now you look like a proper kunoichi, not a wind spirit." Minako preened slightly, patting the intricate arrangement. "Will they like us, do you think? Your friends from before?" A shadow passed over Ino's features, there and gone so quickly that only Naruto, attuned to her every micro-expression after 2 decades together, noticed it. "They'll be cautious," she replied honestly. "We've been gone a long time." Without explanation, Naruto added, kneeling to help their younger son, Shikaku, adjust his travel pack. "From their perspective, we abandoned the village. But you had to leave," Shikaku stated, his young face solemn. Unlike his sister's expressive openness, the boy had inherited his mother's analytical mind and his namesake's strategic thinking. "To protect them. To gather information." "We know that," Ino said gently. "They don't." "Not yet." The 4-year-old redhead, who had woken from his nap cranky and clingy, tugged at Naruto's sleeve. "Papa, I don't want to go," he whined, rubbing his eyes with pudgy fists. "Too many people feelings." Naruto scooped up the child with practiced ease, settling him on broad shoulders where small hands immediately tangled in his hair for security. "It's okay, Kushina," he soothed, using the nickname that always calmed his youngest son. "Remember what we practiced? The quiet mind technique?" The boy nodded solemnly, his bright red hair flopping into eyes that, unlike his siblings' blue, were a striking violet. Whisker marks, fainter than Naruto's but unmistakable, adorned his chubby cheeks. "Think of the bubble," he recited carefully. "Keep feelings inside the bubble." "That's right," Naruto confirmed, a proud smile warming his weathered features. "You're getting very good at it." Ino approached, brushing a gentle hand over the child's hair. "And if it gets too overwhelming, what do you do?" "Hold Mama's hand," the boy replied promptly. "Or Papa's. And think of the mountain cave where it's quiet." The simple exchange revealed volumes about their family dynamics. About a child clearly sensitive to emotional energy. About parents accustomed to managing his unique needs. It spoke of years of careful teaching, of adaptations made for abilities that set him apart. Minako bounced impatiently nearby, unable to contain her excitement despite her 14 years. "I can sense them now," she announced. 4 no, 5 chakra signatures. 2 are really strong. Naruto exchanged a glance with Ino. "Recognize any of them?" Ino closed her eyes briefly, extending her senses outward in a technique far more refined than the basic detection she'd learned as a genin. "Niji Hyuga," she confirmed after a moment, and her eyes snapped open, surprise evident. "Kakashi, Hataki's still active?" Naruto's eyebrows rose in genuine surprise. "He'd be, what, 48, Ino calculated. Not that old for an elite jonin. Especially one who became Hokage. This information, gleaned from careful intelligence gathering over the years, still felt strange to voice aloud. Their former sensei, the perpetually late, chronically lazy Kakashi, had risen to lead the village they'd fled. "Showtime," Naruto murmured as the forest around them shifted subtly. The almost imperceptible change in air pressure that signaled the arrival of skilled shinobi attempting to remain undetected. They emerged from the trees like ghosts, 5 ANBU operatives in standard masks and armor, moving with the synchronized precision of a long-established team. At their center walked a figure both familiar and changed, Niji Hyuga. His ANBU mask pushed up to reveal a face more lined than they remembered, the right side marked by a jagged scar that tugged at the corner of his eye. Uzumaki. Yamanaka. His formal greeting carried no warmth, no indication of their shared past. "By order of the 7th Hokage, you are granted temporary entry to Konoha for the purpose of intelligence exchange." Naruto stepped forward, his posture neither submissive nor challenging, the precise diplomatic bearing of someone accustomed to navigating tense political waters. Captain Hyuga, he acknowledged with a respectful inclination of his head. We appreciate the Hokage's consideration. Niji's pale eyes flicked to the children, lingering momentarily on the red-haired boy perched on Naruto's shoulders, then on Minako's curious face, before settling on Shikaku's cool assessment. Something unreadable crossed his features before the ANBU captain's professional mask reasserted itself. The terms of entry require deactivation of all chakra suppression techniques before crossing the village boundary, he stated, returning his attention to the adults. Standard security protocol. Ino nodded. Understood. We'll comply at the designated checkpoint. If Niji was surprised by her easy acquiescence, he didn't show it. Follow me. Maintain formation with my team. No deviation from the assigned route. As the ANBU escort arranged themselves, 2 ahead, 2 behind, Niji alongside, Minako sidled closer to her father, lowering her voice to an excited whisper that was nonetheless clearly audible to everyone. Is that really the Niji Hyuga? From your stories? The one who fought you in the Chunin exams? A flicker of something, amusement, perhaps, or long-buried memory, passed across Niji's stoic features before he could suppress it. Naruto's hand came to rest on his daughter's shoulder, neither confirming nor denying, but the slight squeeze conveyed volumes. Later. Questions later. As they began moving toward Konoha, the setting sun at their backs cast long shadows before them, stretching toward the village like reaching fingers. 20 years of absence telescoped into these final moments of return, each step carrying them closer to confronting the past they'd fled and the people they'd left behind. On Naruto's shoulders, little Kushino leaned down to whisper in his father's ear, voice tremulous with uncertainty. Papa, why is everyone so scared angry? Naruto reached up to steady the boy with one strong hand. Because change is difficult, little one, he replied softly. Even necessary change. Ahead, through gaps in the ancient trees, the walls of Konoha became visible. Higher than they remembered, reinforced with modern materials alongside traditional construction. Beyond those walls waited judgment, reunion, and the beginning of revelations that would shake the shinobi world to its foundations. After 20 years of running, of hiding, of gathering intelligence and strength in equal measure, they were finally coming home. Though whether Konoha would still claim them remained to be seen. Konoha's main gate loomed before them, a towering monument to both tradition and innovation. The familiar red arch remained, though reinforced with modern materials that gleamed in the dying sunlight. Massive wooden doors, carved with intricate patterns that hadn't existed 20 years ago, stood partially open, revealing the village beyond. Naruto's steps faltered almost imperceptibly as they approached. For 20 years, this moment had existed only in dreams and contingency plans. Never quite real, never fully imagined. Now, confronted with the physical reality of his former home, he felt a dizzying rush of emotions that threatened to crack his carefully maintained composure. Beside him, Ino's hand brushed against his, the briefest touch, but loaded with 2 decades of shared struggles and unspoken understanding. Her eyes, when they met his, held a storm of her own conflicting feelings, but also resolve. They had come too far to hesitate now. Checkpoint, Niji announced, halting the procession several meters from the gate where a small security station had been constructed. Chakra suppression techniques must be deactivated here. Minako bounced on her toes, barely containing her excitement as she stared at the village entrance. Finally! I've been dying to let loose. It's so uncomfortable keeping everything all squished down. Minako, her brother Shikaku hissed, mortified by her lack of decorum. Ino stepped forward, addressing Niji directly. Captain, before we proceed, our suppression techniques are complex and interconnected. Deactivating them will cause a significant chakra surge. Your sensors should be warned. Niji's scarred face revealed nothing, but he nodded after a moment's consideration. Understood. Security has been briefed to expect anomalous readings. From his perch on Naruto's shoulders, little Kushino clutched tighter at his father's hair, violet eyes wide with apprehension. Too many feelings coming, he whispered, burying his face against Naruto's head. Naruto reached up, gently transferring the boy into his arms. Remember your bubble, Kushino. Just like we practiced. The child nodded solemnly, then closed his eyes in concentration. tiny fingers forming a seal that no 4-year-old should have been able to master. Ready? Ino asked, glancing at each family member in turn. At their nods, she formed a complex sequence of hand signs, nothing that Niji recognized from standard Konoha techniques. Naruto mirrored her movements with his free hand, while the older children followed with practiced precision. Release. Phantom Veil technique. They intoned in near-perfect unison. The effect was instantaneous and staggering. Chakra erupted from all 5 figures like water bursting through a shattered dam. Not chaotic, but powerful beyond measure. Colors bloomed around them in shimmering auras visible even to non-sensor types. Naruto's a swirling maelstrom of blue and crimson. Ino's a pulsing lavender threaded with platinum filaments. Minako's a sunburst of golden light. Shikaku's a deep indigo that seemed to bend shadows toward it. And most surprising, little Kushino's a vibrant, almost electric emerald that sparked and flared with untamed potential. The ANBU escorts instinctively dropped into defensive stances, overwhelmed by the sudden tsunami of chakra. Even Niji, with all his experience, took an involuntary step backward, Byakugan activating automatically in response to the perceived threat. Holy shit, one of the masked ANBU whispered, breaking protocol in his shock. Through his Byakugan, Niji saw what the others could only sense. Chakra networks unlike anything in Konoha's medical records. Naruto's had always been unusual due to the 9 tails. But now it was transformed. The demonic chakra fully integrated with his own in a complex lattice that defied conventional understanding. Ino's mind-centered pathways had evolved into something almost architectural in its precision. And the children's networks, especially the youngest, displayed hybridized patterns that combined elements of both parents, while manifesting entirely new configurations. Apologies for the display, Naruto said calmly, as if they hadn't just unleashed chakra signatures that would register on sensors halfway across Fire Country. The technique requires significant suppression. Niji recovered his composure with admirable speed. Proceed through the checkpoint. Single file. As they crossed the threshold into Konoha proper, Naruto felt a physical jolt, like electricity running along nerve endings too long deadened. Home. For all its changes, for all the new construction and unfamiliar additions, the essential character of the village remained. The same mountains still watched over the rooftops. The same rich scent of earth and timber perfumed the air, though now mingled with new aromas of development. For Ino, it was the familiar vibration of thousands of minds in proximity. A psychic hum that had once been as natural as breathing. She had grown accustomed to smaller communities, to isolated compounds and remote villages. The sudden immersion in Konoha's mental cacophony was both overwhelming and achingly familiar. "Mom," Minako whispered urgently, gripping Ino's sleeve. Everyone staring. Indeed, their procession had not gone unnoticed. Word traveled fast in the shinobi village. Civilians and ninja alike paused in their evening activities, watching with undisguised curiosity as the ANBU escort guided these strange yet somehow familiar visitors through the main thoroughfare. Whispers followed in their wake like ripples in still water. "Is that? Can't be. They've been dead for." The blonde hair. Whisker marks like the old stories. Those kids with them. Naruto kept his gaze fixed ahead, ignoring the murmurs and pointing fingers. In his arms, Kushino had gone rigid, overwhelmed by the surge of emotions emanating from the curious onlookers. The boy's chakra flickered erratically, responding to the psychic bombardment. "Breathe, little one," Naruto murmured, channeling a thread of calming energy into his son's system. "Find the quiet center." Ino moved closer, adding her own stabilizing presence to the boy's struggle. As a Yamanaka, she understood better than most the challenge of sorting through emotional input. "Focus on my voice, Kushino. Just like our practice in the mountains." The child nodded jerkily, tiny face scrunched in concentration. Gradually, his flaring chakra settled into a more stable rhythm. Their path took them deeper into the village, past buildings both familiar and strange. The Yamanaka flower shop still stood on its corner, though expanded and modernized. Ichiraku Ramen occupied the same location, now a proper restaurant rather than a simple stand. The academy had clearly been rebuilt, larger and more imposing than before, with training grounds visible through an ornate gate. They fixed the crack in the third's nose, Naruto observed suddenly, gaze lifting to the Hokage monument that dominated the village skyline. Niji followed his line of sight. after the restoration following Pain's attack. You remember that? We weren't completely isolated, Naruto replied, a hint of his old defensiveness breaking through the composed exterior. We knew about Pain. About the war. Minako stared up at the monument in undisguised wonder. 6 faces now, she counted aloud. Grandpa said there were only 4 when you left. Grandpa? Niji echoed, the first sign of personal interest he'd shown. The girl winced, realizing her slip. Shikaka shot her a reproachful look that would have done his namesake proud. Master Jiraiya, Ino clarified smoothly. He was with us for many years before his passing. The children came to call him Grandpa. Something flickered in Niji's pale eyes. Surprise, perhaps, or recalculation. I see. They continued in tense silence until the Hokage Tower came into view. Rebuilt and expanded but unmistakable in its central role within the village. Unlike the original, this structure incorporated modern elements alongside traditional architecture, creating a strikingly harmonious blend of old and new. The 7th awaits you in the ceremonial meeting chamber, Niji informed them as they approached the tower's entrance. Security protocols require that you surrender any weapons before proceeding. Of course, Naruto agreed, unslinging a scroll case from his back and handing it over without hesitation. Ino likewise relinquished a slim tanto from her belt and several hidden senbon. The children, having been briefed extensively, followed suit, Minako rather dramatically emptying numerous pockets of shuriken, while Shikaka quietly handed over a set of precision-crafted kunai that looked more suitable for ritual than combat. Kashino doesn't carry weapons, Ino explained when the ANBU looked expectantly at the small redhead. He's 4. Little Kashino chose that moment to produce a small stone from his pocket, offering it up with solemn dignity. It's sharp, he explained seriously. Could hurt someone. The gesture, somewhere between adorable and heartbreaking, caused a ripple of discomfort among the ANBU escorts. Even Niji's stern expression softened momentarily. Thank you for your honesty, he said, accepting the stone with formal gravity that matched the child's own seriousness. Through the tower's entrance they went, up flights of stairs that spiraled higher than Naruto remembered, past offices humming with evening activity. Shinobi of various ranks paused in their duties, shock registering on their faces as they recognized the long-missing ninja. A few of the older ones even reached out instinctively before pulling back, as if touching these apparitions might dispel whatever genjutsu had conjured them. Everyone looks ancient, Minako whispered to her brother, not quite quietly enough. Were they all this old in Dad's stories? Everyone ages 20 years when you don't see them for 20 years, Shikaka replied with dry logic. Basic mathematics. Their banter died as they reached an imposing set of doors marked with the Konoha symbol and flanked by ANBU guards. Niji nodded to the sentries, who stepped aside, allowing the doors to swing open on silent hinges. Beyond lay a spacious chamber designed for diplomatic functions, formal yet intimate, with a circular table at its center rather than the traditional Hokage desk. The room's design enabled conversation without the hierarchical positioning of standard meeting rooms, though no one could mistake where the true authority resided. 6 figures awaited them inside, arranged in a loose semicircle that conveyed both caution and anticipation. At the center, unmistakable despite the years and changes, stood the 7th Hokage. Sasuke Uchiha had abandoned the flowing robes for this encounter, clad instead in dark, practical attire that spoke more of the battlefield than bureaucracy. His mismatched eyes, one onyx black, one ringed Rinnegan, fixed on Naruto with an intensity that seemed to compress the very air between them. The years had sharpened rather than softened his features, carving deeper lines of authority and experience into what had once been almost feminine beauty. Beside him, Sakura Uchiha stood with the poised readiness of a combat medic, prepared for either healing or harm as circumstances dictated. Her short pink hair framed a face mature but still youthful, though her emerald eyes carried the weight of responsibilities far beyond her years. Shikamaru Nara occupied the position to Sasuke's left, arms crossed over his flak jacket, his analytical gaze already dissecting the newcomers with characteristic efficiency. Gray streaked his hair at the temples, and the shadow of his father's bearing had fully manifested in his stance. In stark contrast to these familiar faces, the 4th figure provoked an audible gasp from Ino. Inoichi Yamanaka had aged dramatically in 20 years, his once vibrant appearance now weathered by time and grief. Silver hair, Deep lines and slightly stooped shoulders couldn't disguise the core of steel that had made him one of Konoha's most formidable intelligence operatives. His pale blue eyes, so like his daughter's, locked onto Ino with devastating intensity. The final two figures completed the reception committee. Kakashi Hatake, somehow looking less changed than the others despite the passage of time. His masked face and visible eye conveying the same lazy alertness that had characterized him 2 decades earlier. And Hinata Hyuga, now a woman of quiet confidence rather than shy hesitation, her lavender eyes taking in every detail of the returned exiles. For one breathless moment, the two groups regarded each other across a chasm of 20 years. Suspicion and hope, anger and longing, all suspended in perfect, terrible balance. Then Kishino squirmed in Naruto's arms, breaking the tableau with childish impatience. "Papa, down please," he requested, eyes fixed curiously on the assembled Konoha leadership. Naruto hesitated, protective instincts warring with the need to show trust. Finally, he set the boy gently on his feet, though he kept a hand on the small shoulder. It was Sasuke who broke the silence, his deep voice controlled yet resonant with barely suppressed emotion. Naruto. A single word, a name, but loaded with 2 decades of questions. Naruto met his former teammate's mismatched gaze steadily. Sasuke. He paused, then added with the ghost of his old grin, or should I say, Lord Hokage? Something dangerous flickered in Sasuke's eyes. 20 years of silence. And that's how you begin? Would you prefer I start with apologies? Naruto countered, his casual tone belied by the tension in his shoulders. Or explanations? There are children present. I thought we might manage basic civilities first. Sakura stepped forward, medical training overriding emotional reactions as she scanned the newcomers with professional assessment. You all look exhausted, especially the little one. Her gaze softened as it landed on Kishino, who was studying her with open curiosity. Perhaps we should ensure everyone's basic needs are met before interrogations begin. This isn't an interrogation, Sasuke corrected sharply, though his gaze never left Naruto. It's a security briefing. One that's 20 years overdue. Ino shifted subtly, positioning herself between the Konoha leadership and her children. We've traveled continuously for 6 days to reach you, she stated, her diplomatic tone a stark contrast to the girl who had once shouted and gossiped through the village streets. We're prepared to provide full explanations, but Sakura is right. The children should be settled first. Mom, Minako protested, clearly unwilling to miss any part of this dramatic reunion. We're fine. I'm not even tired. Arrangements have been made. Shikamaru interjected smoothly, ever the practical strategist. Secure quarters in the diplomatic wing. Food, baths, medical check if needed. His sharp gaze assessed the 3 children with undisguised curiosity. The young ones can rest while we catch up. The underlying meaning was clear. The children would be comfortably but securely contained while the adults had their reckoning. Throughout this exchange, Inoichi had remained silent, his weathered features locked in rigid control as he stared at the daughter he had believed lost for 20 years. Now, he took a single step forward, halting when Ino instinctively tensed. Ino, he said simply, his voice roughened by age and emotion. Something cracked in Ino's carefully maintained composure. Father, she replied, the word catching slightly in her throat. Kishino tugged at Naruto's pant leg, violet eyes wide with wonder. Papa, he stage whispered, pointing at Inoichi. Is that my other grandpa? The mind talker won? The innocent question landed like an explosive tag in the tension-filled room. Inoichi's stoic expression crumbled entirely, naked longing replacing decades of disciplined control. Yes, Naruto answered softly, resting a protective hand on his son's bright red hair. That's your grandfather. Kishino studied the elderly man with solemn intensity, then announced with childish directness, your heart hurts a lot. It's all spiky and blue inside. Inoichi stared at the small boy in stunned silence, the implications of such perceptive ability, especially in one so young, clearly not lost on Konoha's former intelligence chief. Kishino has certain sensitivities, Ino explained, her voice steadying as she shifted into the familiar role of mother. Part of why we've returned now, rather than later. Interesting timing, Sasuke observed coldly. 20 years to the day after your disappearance. One might almost suspect deliberate theatrical flair. Naruto's expression hardened. Or one might recognize the significance of cycles and seal matrices, if one had been paying attention to the warning signs. The cryptic response caused visible reactions around the room, particularly from Kakashi, whose visible eye narrowed in sudden, sharp focus. Signs of what, exactly? Sasuke pressed, tension coiling in his stance. Before Naruto could respond, Minako stepped forward impulsively, unable to contain herself any longer. The convergence, obviously, she exclaimed, as if explaining something elementary. The 20-year cycle when the dimensional barriers thin and the gateway can be. Minako! Shikaka hissed, physically pulling his sister back. Classified information protocols. The girl flushed scarlet. Sorry. They're going to find out anyway. And everyone's being so dramatic and, that's quite enough, young lady, Ino cut in with maternal authority that brooked no argument. Security procedures exist for reasons beyond your personal impatience. Throughout this family exchange, the Konoha leadership observed with varying degrees of surprise and assessment. Seeing Naruto and Ino function as parents, disciplining, protecting, guiding, was perhaps more disorienting than their physical changes. These were not the impulsive, self-centered teenagers who had vanished 2 decades ago, but adults shaped by years of responsibility and apparent danger. Sasuke's gaze swept over the 3 children, lingering on their faces, noting familiar features blended with stranger elements. The diplomatic quarters have been prepared, he stated finally. 2A and BU will escort the children. The adults will remain for immediate debriefing. I'm not a child, Minako protested automatically. I'm a full-ranked guardian initiate. I've completed 17 B-rank operations and Minako, Naruto interrupted, his tone gentle but brooking no argument. Go with your siblings. Help Kushino settle in. We'll join you soon. The girl looked ready to argue further, but something in her father's expression made her reconsider. With a theatrical sigh of teenage martyrdom, she nodded. Fine. But you'd better tell me everything later. Everything appropriate, Ino qualified, embracing each child in turn. When she reached Kushino, she knelt to his level, pressing her forehead to his. Remember your techniques if the feelings get too loud. The red-headed boy nodded solemnly. I'll be brave, Mama. You always are, she whispered, pressing a kiss to his forehead before standing. Tui and Bu materialized from the shadows of the room. A woman in a cat mask and a man in what appeared to be a stylized monkey. With respectful nods to the Hokage, they guided the 3 children from the chamber, though not without a final longing glance from Minako and a calculating look from Shikaku. As the doors closed behind them, the atmosphere in the room shifted palpably, the thin veneer of diplomacy giving way to raw emotional currents too long suppressed. Sasuke moved with sudden, blinding speed, not attacking, but positioning himself directly before Naruto, close enough that their faces were mere inches apart. His Sharingan blazed to life, spinning in deadly synchronicity with his Rinnegan. 20 years. Each word fell like a blade. No message. No sign. Not even confirmation you were alive. Naruto didn't flinch, didn't back away. If anything, he seemed to grow more solid, more immovable, a force of nature weathering a storm. We couldn't risk it. Not with what was at stake. Which was what, exactly? Sakura demanded, stepping forward to flank her husband. 2 decades had transformed her youthful infatuation into something deeper. A partner's fierce protectiveness. A leader's demand for accountability. What could possibly justify abandoning your village, your friends, your duties? The end of the shinobi world as we know it, Ino answered flatly, moving to stand shoulder to shoulder with Naruto. The positioning was automatic, habitual. Battle partners accustomed to defending each other's flanks. A threat older than the hidden villages, older than the Sage of Six Paths himself. Kakashi pushed away from the wall he'd been leaning against, his casual posture belying the intensity of his focus. You're talking about the Otsutsuki. The name fell into the room like a stone into still water, ripples of tension spreading outward. Naruto's eyes narrowed in sharp assessment of his former sensei. So you know something of them, he observed, neither confirming nor denying. Enough to recognize the implications, Kakashi replied, his visible eye crinkled not in his customary smile, but in calculation. The Fourth Shinobi War revealed certain uncomfortable truths about our world's origins. Kagaya was merely the beginning. Wait, Sakura interrupted, medical precision demanding clarity. Are you saying you left because of information about the Otsutsuki clan? Information you discovered during the Chunin exams? Naruto and Ino exchanged a glance loaded with 2 decades of shared secrets. It was Ino who answered, her tone clinical, detached, the voice of an intelligence operative delivering critical information. During the chaos of the invasion, we discovered a hidden archive beneath the arena. Ancient records, sealed away by the first Hokage himself. Records that detail the cyclical invasion pattern. Every 20 years, like clockwork, dating back centuries before the village system. That's impossible, Shikamaru interjected, his tactical mind immediately identifying the flaw. If Otsutsuki invasions occurred every 20 years, we'd have historical records. Our parents, grandparents would have witnessed them. Not if they were carefully concealed, Naruto countered. Not if each incursion was disguised as something else. A natural disaster, a political conflict, a demon attack. His blue eyes darkened. Like, for instance, the Nine-Tails assault on Konoha 33 years ago. Sasuke's expression sharpened to dangerous intensity. You're suggesting the Nine-Tails attack wasn't Obito's doing? That it was connected to these cycles? Obito was a puppet, Naruto stated bluntly. Just as Madara was before him. Just as others have been throughout history. Influential figures manipulated by forces they'd barely comprehended. He paused, gaze sweeping the assembled leadership. But you already know this, or suspect it. The Fourth War revealed too much about Kagaya's origins to leave those questions unasked. What we know, Sasuke countered coldly, is that you and Yamanaka vanished without warning or explanation, taking critical village intelligence with you. That for 20 years, you've operated outside the boundaries of any recognized shinobi system. That you've returned now with children displaying unusual abilities and claims of apocalyptic threats conveniently timed with your anniversary of desertion. Ino stepped forward, ice blue eyes flashing with rare anger. We didn't desist, Hokage-sama. We were deployed by Jiraiya of the Sannin, acting on direct intelligence that threatened not just Konoha, but all 5 great nations. Jiraiya had no authority to, Sasuke began. Jiraiya was the only one who believed us, Naruto cut in, voice sharp as a kunai. The only one with the knowledge and network to confirm what we'd found. The scroll we discovered contained coordinates, ritual instructions, and a timeline. It outlined a ceremony scheduled to occur exactly 20 years from the date of the Chunin exams. A ceremony designed to open what they called the gateway. Gateway to what? Hinata spoke for the first time, her quiet voice somehow carrying more weight for its rarity. Naruto's gaze shifted to her, softening almost imperceptibly. To their world. The Otsutsuki homeworld. He drew a deep breath. The previous incursions, Kagaya, Momoshiki, Kinshiki, were merely advanced scouts. The gateway would allow a full-scale invasion. Stunned silence followed this proclamation, broken only when Inoichi finally stepped forward, his weathered features set in lines of determination. You still haven't explained why you had to leave, he said, addressing his daughter directly. Why the secrecy? Why no contact for 20 years? Ino met her father's gaze steadily, though the effort clearly cost her. Because we were compromised from the beginning. The scroll activated a tracking seal when we read it, marked us for observation by their agents already embedded in the 5 nations. Embedded agents? Shikamaru's expression sharpened with strategic assessment. You mean spies? Sleeper agents? We mean people who aren't people at all, Naruto clarified grimly. Vessels. Humans whose bodies were taken over generations ago, their consciousness suspended while something else wears their skin. They look human, act human, but they're puppets connected to a hive mind beyond our dimension. The implications rippled through the room like ice water. Every unexpected betrayal, every inexplicable decision by supposedly loyal shinobi over the years, suddenly cast in a terrifying new light. That's why we couldn't contact anyone, Ino continued, her professional demeanor fraying at the edges. We didn't know who was compromised. Every message risked exposing our location, our research. Every communication channel was potentially monitored. Even Jiraiya's toads? Kakashi questioned skeptically. His network was famously secure, which is why he created an entirely new summons contract for us, Naruto explained. The Fox messengers established a completely separate information system, unknown to any existing network. A shadow passed over his features. It wasn't enough to save him in the end. When? Sasuke demanded, recognizing the implication. 12 years ago, Naruto answered, old grief evident despite his controlled exterior. He died ensuring our research facility remained hidden. Bought us time to relocate with the children. Throughout this exchange, Inoichi had remained focused on his daughter, decades of intelligence training enabling him to process the strategic implications while still absorbing the personal reality of her return. Now, he asked the question that hung unspoken in the air. And the children? Particularly the youngest. He's clearly more than simply a child with sensory abilities. Ino straightened, maternal protectiveness warring with professional assessment. All three have unique capabilities, hybrid abilities resulting from our combined bloodlines, further enhanced by specialized training and certain adaptations Jiraiya helped us develop. Minako inherited my chakra reserves and Ino's mind techniques. Naruto elaborated. She can generate shadow clones with limited telepathic linkage. A network of connected minds that can cover remarkable distances. Tactically significant, Shikamaru observed with professional appreciation. Shikaka takes after his namesake. Ino continued, nodding to the Nara strategist. Analytical mind, exceptional strategic capabilities. But he combines that with chakra-enhanced sensory perception. He can detect patterns in chakra flow across entire regions, identifying anomalies that would escape conventional sensors. And the little one? Sakura pressed, medical curiosity evident. Kushino, you called him? A complex look passed between Naruto and Ino, something like pride mingled with deep concern. Kushino is more complicated, Naruto admitted. His abilities are still developing, still unstable, but he appears to have inherited aspects of both the Uzumaki life force and the Yamanaka mind connection, creating something we don't fully understand yet. He's an empath, Ino clarified, professional precision belying maternal worry. Not just sensing emotions like a typical sensor, but experiencing them directly. Absorbing them, sometimes channeling them into physical manifestations. Physical manifestations? Hinata echoed, her medical training immediately recognizing the implications. Naruto nodded gravely. At 3 years old, he absorbed the terror of a civilian child threatened by bandits. That fear manifested as a chakra construct similar to a bijou cloak. Visible, tangible energy that he couldn't control. It destroyed half a village before we could calm him enough to reabsorb it. The silence that followed this revelation was profound. The strategic implications of such an ability, both its potential power and its inherent volatility, weren't lost on anyone present. That's why we return now, Ino continued after a moment. His abilities are growing faster than we can safely manage in isolation. He needs specialized training that only Konoha can provide. That, and the gateway ritual is scheduled for 3 weeks from today, Naruto added bluntly. We've spent 20 years gathering intelligence, developing countermeasures, and establishing a network of trusted allies across the continent. But the final stand must happen here, where it began. Sasuke's mismatched eyes narrowed dangerously. You expect us to mobilize Konoha's forces based on your unverified claims? After 20 years of silence, we expect you to verify them yourself, Naruto countered, reaching into his jacket to produce a small scroll sealed with familiar markings. Complete intelligence briefing. Locations of Otsutsuki vessels we've confirmed. Gateway coordinates. Countermeasure protocols. Everything we've gathered over 2 decades. He placed the scroll on the table between them, a gesture both offering and challenge. We also expect you to remember who we are, Ino added quietly. Whatever you may think of our methods, our loyalty to Konoha never wavered. Everything we've done, every sacrifice, every year of exile, was to protect this village and everyone in it. Sasuke stared at the scroll, conflict evident in his tightly controlled features. 20 years of leadership had taught him caution, taught him to question even the most trusted intelligence. But 20 years hadn't erased the bond forged in Team 7. The connection that had survived betrayal, war, and redemption. Finally, he looked up, Sharingan and Rinnegan boring into Naruto with fearsome intensity. If this is verified, if your intelligence proves accurate, we'll mobilize accordingly. His voice hardened. But until then, you remain under village supervision. No unsanctioned movement, no unsupervised contact with anyone outside this room. Understood, Naruto agreed without hesitation. We anticipated as much. And the children? Ino pressed, maternal concern overriding diplomatic caution. It was Sakura who answered, stepping forward with the authority of her medical position. They'll receive complete evaluations, physical, psychological, chakra assessment, for their safety as much as the villages. I'd like to observe these evaluations, Ino stated, a request framed as near demand. Kashino particularly requires specialized handling during medical procedures. His empathic abilities make standard approaches problematic. Sakura nodded, professional respect momentarily bridging the 20-year gulf. Of course. We'll coordinate protocols. Throughout this exchange, Inoichi had remained silent, processing the strategic implications with the discipline of a lifetime in intelligence work. Now, he addressed his daughter directly, personal need finally breaking through professional reserve. When the immediate security concerns are addressed, he said, voice rough with suppressed emotion, there are matters of family that require attention. Ino's composure wavered visibly. Yes, father. She paused, years of practiced control battling with the simple human need to reconnect. I would like that very much. Sasuke glanced at Shikamaru, a silent command passing between Hokage and advisor. With a nod, Shikamaru moved to the door, signaling the ANBU stationed outside. Temporary quarters have been prepared in the secure diplomatic wing, he informed the returned exiles. You'll be escorted there now. Debriefing will continue tomorrow after we've had time to preliminarily assess your intelligence. As the ANBU entered, Naruto turned to Sasuke one final time. 20 years ago, we made a choice that cost us everything we cared about. We left behind our friends, our mentors, our home, everything that defined us. Because the alternative was unthinkable. For the first time, genuine emotion cracked through his composed exterior. The boy who had once shouted his dreams from rooftops momentarily visible in the weathered face of the man. I never stopped being your friend, Sasuke. Even when we couldn't risk contact. Even when years passed with no word, that never changed. He paused, blue eyes intense with decades of unspoken truths. When you verify our intelligence, and you will, you'll understand what we were fighting to prevent. What we're still fighting to prevent. Sasuke held his gaze for a long, tense moment. Hokage and exile, former teammates, once brothers suspended between past and present. Finally, he offered a short, almost imperceptible nod. We'll see, he said, neither accepting nor rejecting the extended hand of friendship. Tomorrow, as they followed the ANBU escorts from the chamber, Naruto and Ino walked with the straight-back discipline of shinobi who had faced worse than suspicion and surveillance. Only the briefest touch of their hands, fingers brushing in silent communication, betrayed the emotional toll of this homecoming. Behind them, in the now silent meeting room, Konoha's leadership faced each other across a table where a single scroll rested. A scroll containing either the paranoid delusions of deserters or the most significant intelligence breach in shinobi history. Well, Kakashi observed into the heavy silence, his casual tone belying the sharpness of his gaze. They've certainly mastered the art of dramatic returns. Sasuke ignored the attempt at levity, addressing Shikamaru directly. Full verification protocol. Every claim, every coordinate, every historical reference. I want our best cryptanalysts and intelligence teams working through the night. Already arranged, Shikamaru confirmed with a nod. Ino Shikacho Intelligence Division is standing by. Plus specialized ANB units for field verification of vessel locations. And the children? Hinata asked, her quiet voice drawing attention. Particularly the youngest. If his abilities are as described, high-security medical evaluation, Sakura replied, already mentally cataloging the necessary protocols. With every safety measure we've developed for managing unstable chakra manifestations, Sasuke turned to Noichi, who had remained silent since his daughter's departure. Your assessment? The elder Yamanaka straightened, decades of intelligence experience overriding personal emotion. Their body language, chakra patterns, and psychological presentation all support genuine belief in their claims. They are either telling the truth as they understand it, or they've been subjected to the most sophisticated long-term genjutsu ever created. He paused, professionalism momentarily giving way to fatherly certainty. It's her. Whatever else has happened, that is my daughter. Sasuke absorbed this, then glanced at the window where darkness had fully claimed the village. Outside, lights twinkled across Konoha. Homes and businesses carrying on as they had for decades, unaware that their entire understanding of history and security might be hours away from shattering. 20 years, he murmured, almost to himself. 20 years building a peace they claim was always balanced on a knife's edge. If they're right, Kakashi observed grimly, it was never peace at all. Just the eye of a very, very long storm. In the diplomatic wing across the village, Naruto stood at another window, watching the same constellation of lights with a different perspective. Behind him, Ino moved quietly through their assigned quarters, checking on the children who had finally succumbed to exhaustion after the day's events. She approached silently, years of partnership eliminating the need for words as she joined him at the window. Together they gazed out at the village they had sacrificed everything to protect. A home that now regarded them with suspicion and uncertainty. Did we do the right thing? She asked softly, the question they had asked each other countless times over 20 years of exile. Coming back now, Naruto's gaze remained fixed on the distant Hokage monument, where 6 stone faces watched over the village. We had no choice, he replied, the weight of decades evident in his voice. The gateway opens in 3 weeks. Everything we've worked for, everything we've sacrificed, it all comes down to what happens here. Ino leaned against him slightly, the contact grounding them both. They don't trust us. They don't have to trust us, Naruto answered. They just have to believe the evidence. And they will. Sasuke's too good a leader not to recognize the truth when it's presented to him. And after? She pressed, giving voice to the question that had haunted them throughout their journey home. If we survive this, if we succeed, what then? Naruto turned from the window, blue eyes meeting hers in the dim light. 20 years had transformed the brash, impulsive boy into a man of depth and quiet strength, just as it had transformed the vain, competitive girl into a woman of remarkable resilience and insight. Partners in every sense, forced together by circumstance, bound by shared purpose, and ultimately united by a love forged through hardship and sacrifice. Then, he said softly, brushing a strand of platinum hair from her face, we finally stop running. We give our children the home we always wanted for them. From the bedroom doorway came a small voice, tired but determined. Promise, Papa? They turned to find Kashino standing in his nightclothes, violet eyes heavy with interrupted sleep but focused intently on his parents. The child's uncanny perception, his ability to sense the emotional currents that ran beneath spoken words, made him uniquely attuned to their uncertainties. Naruto crossed to him in 3 long strides, kneeling to meet his son at eye level. I promise, he said with quiet conviction. One way or another, the running stops here. The boy studied his father's face with that eerie intensity that sometimes made him seem far older than his years. People here are scared of us, he observed simply. Scared and angry and sad all mixed together. Like a storm. They don't know us yet, Ino explained gently, joining them and smoothing her son's vibrant red hair. It takes time to understand people who are different, who bring change. Kashino considered this with solemn gravity, then nodded as if coming to an important decision. I can help them not be scared, he declared with childish confidence. I'm good at making storms quiet. The simple statement, innocent yet loaded with implications that would terrify Konoha's security forces if they truly understood the child's capabilities, brought faint smiles to both parents' faces. For now, Naruto said, lifting the boy into his arms, your job is to sleep. Tomorrow brings plenty of challenges for everyone. As he carried his son back to bed, tucking him in beside his sleeping siblings, Naruto felt the weight of 20 years pressing down with renewed force. Tomorrow would bring scrutiny, suspicion, and the beginning of preparations for the battle they had spent 2 decades preparing to fight. But tonight, watching his children sleep in the heart of the village he had once called home, he allowed himself to hope that his promise to Kushino might be more than wishful thinking. That perhaps, after 20 years of running, they had finally found their way back where they belong, even if the village wasn't yet ready to welcome them home. Dawn exploded over Konoha in a fury of crimson and gold, bleeding across the eastern sky like a warning. Shikamaru and Nara stood on the rooftop of the Intelligence Division headquarters, smoke curling from his cigarette into the chill morning air. He hadn't slept. None of them had. The scroll Naruto had delivered sat open before him on a makeshift table, its contents meticulously dissected by the best analytical minds in Konoha throughout the night. Pages of notes, fluttered in the morning breeze, weighted down with kunai stabbed carelessly into the wooden surface. Data points. Coordinates. Historical correlations. A tapestry of nightmares woven through 20 years of covert intelligence gathering. Well? Sasuke materialized beside him, silent as a shadow. The Hokage's haggard appearance betrayed his own sleepless night, though his mismatched eyes remained sharp as ever. Shikamaru took a final drag before crushing the cigarette beneath his sandal. It's legitimate. Every verifiable data point checks out. The historical incidents they flagged as Otsutsuki interference. The patterns are there once you know to look for them. And the vessel locations? The supposed infiltrators? NBU teams are confirming now. First reports are troubling. Shikamaru gestured to a map pinned at the center of their makeshift investigation board. Red markers dotted strategic locations across all 5 great nations, political centers, military installations, chakra research facilities. 3 confirmed hits already. Individuals who match their behavioral and chakra profiles. People in positions of significant influence. Sasuke's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. We need absolute certainty. We won't have that luxury. Shikamaru gathered the scattered papers into a folder with practiced efficiency. Not with their claimed timeline. If they're right about the gateway ritual, 3 weeks from now, then we're already working against impossible odds. The Hokage moved to the edge of the roof, gazing out over the awakening village. Civilians emerged from homes, shops opened their doors, academy students raced through streets still cast in long morning shadows, all oblivious to the existential threat supposedly looming on their horizon. I want to speak with the children, he decided abruptly. Shikamaru's eyebrow lifted in surprise. The intelligence verification is still underway. Wouldn't it make more sense to? Adults lie. Sasuke cut him off. They construct elaborate deceptions, fabricate evidence, manipulate facts to serve their purposes. A ghost of something, memory, perhaps, or old pain, flickered across his aristocratic features. Children, however, lack the experience for truly seamless deception. Especially about a lifetime of conditioning. Understanding dawned in Shikamaru's expression. You think the children are the key to verifying their story? What they've been taught, how they've been raised, precisely. Sasuke turned, his white coat snapping in the morning breeze. Arrange it. The girl first, Minako. She's the most outspoken, the most likely to reveal inconsistencies. And what about Naruto and Ino? They won't appreciate their children being interrogated. A dangerous smile, cold and fleeting, crossed Sasuke's face. Then perhaps they'll appreciate how we felt when they disappeared for 20 years without explanation. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, casting golden rectangles across the polished floor of the diplomatic suite. Minako Uzumaki Yamanaka sprawled dramatically across an ornate couch, one arm flung over her eyes. The very picture of teenage martyrdom. I'm literally dying of boredom, she announced to the ceiling. Trapped in the most exciting village in the world. And we can't even explore. Across the room, her brother Shikaku didn't bother looking up from the shogi board where he meticulously reset pieces for another solo match. Hyperbole doesn't suit you, sister. Nobody has ever literally died from boredom. You don't know that, she countered, flipping onto her stomach to glare at him. The movement sent her wild blonde hair cascading over the couch's edge, nearly brushing the floor. Maybe that's what they tell the families. Sorry, your child was so bored their heart just gave up in protest. Little Kashino giggled from his nest of pillows in the corner, where he'd been quietly drawing with crayons provided by their ANBU watchers. Hearts don't protest, Mina. They just go boom boom. Exactly. And mine's about to stop boom booming from extreme understimulation. She rolled to her feet in a fluid movement that spoke of years of rigorous physical training, then stalked to the window for the 100th time that morning. Where are Mom and Dad anyway? They'd been in meetings forever. 4 hours and 17 minutes, Shikaka corrected without looking up. Hardly forever. Minako pressed her forehead against the glass, her breath fogging the otherwise perfect view of Konoha's eastern district. Beyond the diplomatic compound's walls, real life teased her. Merchants hawking their wares, shinobi leaping effortlessly between rooftops, Children playing ninja with wooden kunai. Freedom. Normalcy. Everything their nomadic existence had denied them. I just want to see it, she said, quieter now. All the places from their stories. Ichiraku Ramen. The academy. The training grounds where Dad learned the Rasengan and Mom mastered her mind techniques. Something in her subdued tone caught Shikaku's attention. He glanced up, analytical eyes softening slightly. You will. Once security protocols are satisfied, we'll. The door to their suite swung open without warning. 2 A&B guards stepped inside, flanking a woman in a pristine white medical coat. Her pink hair, cropped short and practical, framed sharp green eyes that scanned the room with clinical precision. Good morning. Sakura Uchiha greeted them with professional courtesy that stopped just short of warmth. I'm Dr. Uchiha, Chief Medical Officer. I'll be conducting your preliminary health assessments today. Minako straightened instantly, excitement crackling across her features like lightning. You're Sakura. Mom and Dad's teammate. The one who punched a goddess and lived to tell about it. If Sakura was surprised by this characterization, she masked it perfectly. I'm here in my medical capacity today, she clarified, setting a small case on the central table. Standard protocol for all new arrivals to the village, especially those with unique biological backgrounds. Where are our parents? Shikaku asked, rising smoothly to stand beside his sister. Despite being younger, something in his poised alertness suggested a protectiveness beyond his years. Still in debriefing with the Hokage, Sakura replied, her tone neutral. They've authorized these examinations to proceed in their absence. The siblings exchanged a glance loaded with silent communication, a habit developed through years of uncertain situations where trust was a luxury rarely afforded. We were told to expect Mom during any medical procedures, Shikaku noted carefully. His tone remained polite, but his posture had shifted subtly into a defensive stance. Particularly for Kishino, Sakura's gaze moved to the small redhead, who had abandoned his drawings to watch the exchange with unnerving intensity. Those violet eyes, so unlike either Naruto or Ino's, seemed to see through rather than at her. Your brother will be examined last, she assured them. By then, one of your parents should be available to observe. She opened her case, revealing standard medical equipment alongside specialized chakra monitoring devices. Now, which of you would like to go first? Before either could respond, the door opened again. This time, it was Sasuke who entered, his imposing presence immediately dominating the room. The Hokage robes were absent, replaced by practical dark attire that nonetheless conveyed absolute authority. There's been a change of plans, he announced without preamble. Minako, you'll come with me. Your siblings will proceed with the medical evaluations as scheduled. The girl's blue eyes widened, excitement warring with uncertainty. Where are we going? To answer some of your questions about the village, Sasuke replied, his tone offering neither warmth nor hostility. And to ask a few of my own. Shikaku moved slightly, positioning himself between his sister and the Hokage. Our parents' instructions were clear. We stay together until they return. Something dangerous flickered in Sasuke's mismatched eyes. A reminder that beneath the political leader lay a warrior of legendary capacity for both creation and destruction. Your parents are not in command here, he stated simply. I am. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Even little Kishino sensed the shift, his small face scrunching with concentration as he absorbed the conflicting emotional currents. It's fine, Shika, Minako decided, flashing her brother a confident smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. I've been dying to see the village anyway. And Lord Hokage is practically family, right? Dad's best friend and all that. Sasuke's expression remained impassive at this characterization, either confirming nor denying the claimed connection. Sakura stepped forward, professionalism momentarily giving way to personal concern. Sasuke, is this really necessary? They've only just arrived, and the protocols we agreed upon have been adjusted based on new intelligence, he finished for her, his tone brooking no argument even from his wife. The medical evaluations will continue as planned for the other two. Minako will return within 2 hours. Without waiting for further discussion, he turned and walked out, clearly expecting the girl to follow. After a moment's hesitation, punctuated by a reassuring nod to her siblings, Minako bounced after him with barely contained excitement, her earlier wariness apparently forgotten in the prospect of finally seeing Konoha. As the door closed behind them, Sakura's professional mask slipped just enough to reveal a flash of genuine concern. Your sister is impulsive. You have no idea, Shikaka sighed, shoulders relaxing fractionally though his eyes remained fixed on the door. But she's smarter than she lets on. And she's been trained by the best. Little Kashino padded over to Sakura, studying her with that unsettling intensity. Your heart is worried, he observed matter-of-factly. About the scary man and my sister. But also about my dad. It's all tangled up like spiderwebs inside you. Sakura stared down at the small boy, momentarily taken aback by his directness. Then, with the adaptability that had made her Konoha's premier medical ninja, she knelt to his level. And what do you see in your brother's heart right now? Kashino tilted his head, studying Shikaku with the same penetrating gaze. Fear not fear, he declared cryptically. The kind that looks like calm water but has sharks swimming underneath. A reluctant smile tugged at Shikaku's lips. Threat assessment isn't fear, Kashino. We've discussed this. Same thing, different words, the child replied with the absolute certainty of the very young. Then, without warning, he placed his small hand against Sakura's cheek. Don't worry, Mina's good at making grumpy people less grumpy. Even Dad says so. Sakura blinked, startled by both the contact and the surprisingly warm temperature of the child's skin. Medical curiosity immediately overwhelmed personal boundaries. Your body temperature is elevated. Does that happen often? Only when he's processing intense emotions, Shikaku explained, moving closer with protective intent. His empathic abilities generate heat as a biological side effect. Nothing pathological. Fascinating, Sakura murmured, the medic temporarily overshadowing all other concerns. The neurological implications alone. She caught herself, noting Shikaku's guarded expression, and returned to professional detachment. Well, let's begin with you then. Basic physical followed by chakra mapping. Nothing invasive. As she prepared her equipment, Sakura couldn't help but observe the children with both clinical and personal interest. In Shikaku's measured movements and analytical gaze, she saw echoes of both Shikamaru and the original Shikaku Nara, though his coloring, dark hair, bright blue eyes, came directly from his parents. And the little one, Kashino, with his vibrant red hair and peculiar violet eyes, he resembled neither Naruto nor Ino in any obvious way. Yet something in his boundless curiosity reminded her poignantly of the boy Naruto had once been. 20 years. Her former teammates had built this family, raised these remarkable children, lived entire lives while she and the others had mourned them, searched for them, eventually tried to move forward without them. The thought settled like a stone in her chest as she began her examination. This is so cool. Minako's exclamation echoed across the Hokage Monument viewing platform, drawing curious stares from the few early morning visitors. She leaned perilously far over the railing, drinking in the panoramic view of Konoha spread below like a living map. You can see everything from up here. Sasuke stood several paces back, arms crossed, studying the girl with calculating intensity. In the morning light, her resemblance to both parents was striking. Naruto's sunny coloring and exuberant energy coupled with Ino's sharp features and confident bearing. Yet there was something else there too. Something uniquely her own. A quicksilver intelligence that flashed beneath the excitable exterior. Dad used to talk about coming up here when he was a kid, she continued, spinning back to face him with dizzying enthusiasm. Said it was where he'd go when the village got to be too much. When people were she trailed off, suddenly uncertain how much of her father's childhood sorrows were appropriate to mention. When they treated him like a monster, Sasuke finished flatly. Watching for her reaction, she didn't flinch. Yeah. Because of the Nine Tails. Before they understood what Jinchuriki really were. She moved away from the railing, studying the carved faces with newfound solemnity. He said it got better after he became a genin. When he found his precious people. You, Sakura-san, Kakashi-sensei. Did he tell you why he abandoned those precious people? Sasuke asked, voice deceptively casual. Minako's bright expression clouded. He didn't abandon anyone. Neither did Mom. They were protecting everyone. By disappearing without explanation? By taking critical intelligence with them? By staying hidden for 20 years while we thought them dead? By sacrificing everything to track the vessels. She snapped, teenage bravado momentarily overtaken by genuine anger. By infiltrating Otsutsuki networks across dimensions. By stopping 3 separate incursion attempts that you never even knew about. Sasuke's eyes narrowed at this outburst. Information not included in the scroll Naruto had provided. 3 incursions? Minako bit her lip, realizing she'd said too much. I'm not supposed to talk about mission details, she backpedaled. Dad said the intelligence briefing would cover everything. I'm the Hokage, Sasuke reminded her, stepping closer. If there have been Otsutsuki incursions on this world that Konoha was unaware of, that constitutes a critical security breach, one that must be addressed immediately. The girl squared her shoulders, suddenly looking older than her 15 years. Then you should be talking to my parents, not interrogating me under the pretense of a village tour. A cold smile flickered across Sasuke's face. So you recognize this for what it was? Good. That shows intelligence. I've been trained to recognize manipulation tactics since I was 6, she replied bluntly. Usually they're more subtle than this, Lord Hokage. The title carried just enough emphasis to border on insolence without crossing into outright disrespect. Sasuke found himself unexpectedly impressed by the girl's spine. She had Naruto's unflinching courage coupled with Ino's sharp perception. A formidable combination, even half-formed in adolescence. Walk with me, he commanded, turning toward the path that wound along the top of the monument. After a moment's hesitation, Minako followed, maintaining a cautious distance. Do you know why I brought you here specifically? Sasuke asked as they moved past the stone visage of the 3rd Hokage. Because it's isolated enough that nobody will overhear whatever interrogation technique you're planning to use on me? She suggested warily. Sasuke snorted. The sound so unexpected it made the girl jump. If I wanted to extract information from you against your will, there are far more efficient methods available to me than a scenic hike. They reached the carved likeness of Tsunade, where Sasuke paused, gazing out over the village. I brought you here because this is where your father and I had our most honest conversations, where he would come to find me when I was struggling with my own path. Minako's expression softened with surprise. This wasn't the direction she'd expected the conversation to take. Dad never told me that part. There's a great deal your father likely didn't tell you about our relationship, Sasuke observed, his mismatched eyes still fixed on the village below. About how many times we tried to kill each other. About how close I came to succeeding. The girl's shock was evident, though she tried to mask it. He said you were rivals? That you fought sometimes, but that you were also the person who understood him best. Something indefinable flickered across Sasuke's aristocratic features. Perhaps pain, perhaps memory. And that is why his disappearance made no sense. Why for 20 years, I've had to consider the possibility that everything I believed about Naruto Uzumaki was a lie. Minako fell silent, absorbing the raw emotion beneath the Hokage's controlled exterior. For the first time, she seemed to truly grasp the impact of her parents' disappearance on those they'd left behind. He wanted to contact you, she said finally, voice uncharacteristically quiet. Mom too. Especially after we were born. But the vessels can sense chakra signatures across vast distances. Any communication, any connection to their old lives would have led the enemy straight to us. And through us, to Konoha. So they claim, Sasuke replied, though his tone had lost some of its edge. It's the truth. Minako insisted, stepping closer with the fearlessness that seemed her birthright. Why would they lie? Why would they spend 20 years tracking an enemy that doesn't exist? Why would they raise us in hiding, constantly moving, never having a real home, if it wasn't real? The questions hung in the air between them, reasonable and damning in their simplicity. Sasuke studied the girl's face, the absolute conviction in her blue eyes, the genuine bewilderment at having her family's sacrifice questioned. Children can be deceived, he said finally. Even by those who love them. Not about an entire lifetime, she countered. I've seen the vessels with my own eyes. Fought them alongside Mom and Dad. Watched Grandpa Jiraiya die protecting us from them. Her voice caught on the memory. We've lost safe houses, friends, entire communities that sheltered us when they found our trail. Sasuke's expression sharpened. Communities? Where? All over, Minako replied, waving a hand vaguely. remote villages mostly. Places off the normal trade routes, away from shinobi jurisdiction. We never stayed anywhere more than a few months, not until the compound in the Land of Iron. And even that wasn't permanent. Land of Iron, Sasuke repeated, filing away this significant detail. The Samurai Nation. Outside the 5 great countries but strategically located between them, Minako nodded, seeming relieved to be on less personal ground. The mountains there provided natural protection against chakra detection. And the samurai are less susceptible to becoming vessels. Something about their different approach to energy channeling. Sasuke processed this information with rapid strategic assessment. If true, it aligned with the intelligence in Naruto's scroll, and added new dimensions they hadn't yet verified. Tell me about these vessels, he directed, changing tack. How do you identify them? What are their capabilities? The girl hesitated, clearly weighing how much she should reveal. Shikaku's better at explaining the technical stuff, she hedged. But basically, they're humans whose bodies have been taken over by Otsutsuki consciousness. Not possession, like a Yamanaka technique, more like reprogramming. The original person's mind is suppressed while the vessel operates their body, accessing their memories, mimicking their behavior patterns. And how do you detect them? Chakra signatures have subtle anomalies. Micro-hesitations in response to emotional triggers. Cold spots in their chakra network, especially around the cerebral pathways. She recited these indicators with the practiced ease of someone who had learned them as basic survival knowledge. And their eyes. If you hit them with a specific chakra frequency, their pupils contract differently than normal humans. The clinical precision with which she delivered this information was jarring coming from a teenager. Evidence of an upbringing so different from normal shinobi training that it gave Sasuke pause. Your father's scroll mentioned a ritual, he prompted. The gateway opening. Explain. At this, Minako's enthusiasm returned, her hands moving animatedly as she spoke. Okay, so every 20 years, the dimensional barrier between our world and the Otsutsuki realm thins naturally. Like a cosmic cycle thing. But it's not enough for them to pass through physically. They need to create an anchor point, the gateway, to stabilize the passage. And this requires a ritual? She nodded vigorously. A massive chakra convergence at specific geographic coordinates. They've been setting it up for decades, placing vessels at chakra nexus points across the continent, gradually adjusting the natural energy flows to create a suitable matrix. Which is why they needed 20 years, Sasuke concluded, pieces falling into place. To position their assets, to manipulate the continental chakra network without detection. Exactly. Minako beamed, clearly pleased that he was following. Dad and Mom have been identifying and eliminating key vessels, disrupting their preparations. But we couldn't stop them all. They're too embedded, too scattered. So instead, we focused on developing countermeasures for the ritual itself. Such as? Her expression turned guarded again. That's classified. Dad said only the Hokage and key personnel would be briefed on the countermeasure protocols. Sasuke arched an eyebrow. I am the Hokage. Yeah, but she gestured vaguely. You know. Security protocols. Need to know basis. I'm not authorized to brief leadership. She delivered this with such earnest seriousness that Sasuke nearly smiled despite himself. Very well. He turned, continuing along the path that would take them back toward the village proper. One last question then. Do you trust your parents? Completely? Minako frowned, falling into step beside him. What kind of question is that? Of course I do. Even though they've raised you in isolation? Trained you as a weapon against an enemy many would consider mythological? Denied you the normal childhood every parent supposedly wants for their child? The girl stopped abruptly, her expression hardening into something so reminiscent of Naruto's determination that Sasuke felt a jolt of recognition. My parents, she said quietly, intensity vibrating through every word, have sacrificed everything to protect not just me and my brothers, but this entire world. They've gone without sleep, without food, without healing when they were injured because the mission came first. They've cried when they thought we couldn't hear them, missing their home, their friends, their families. But they never, ever complained. Not once. Her blue eyes blazed with absolute conviction. So yeah, I trust them. Completely. And if you knew them at all, if you were really the friend my dad still believes you are, you would too. Sasuke studied her for a long moment, his face unreadable. Then, without warning, he activated his Sharingan, not to attack or intimidate, but to perfectly capture this moment of raw, unfiltered truth from the daughter of the friend he had lost and found again. "Thank you for your candor," he said finally. "That will be all for now." Beneath Konoha's streets, in laboratories few citizens knew existed, Naruto Uzumaki stood perfectly still as sensors mapped his chakra network. The process was invasive, uncomfortable. Cold metal probes pressed against Tenketsu points while machines whirred and technicians murmured technical observations. But he endured it without complaint, understanding the necessity. Across the room, behind a reinforced observation window, Ino watched with arms crossed and expression guarded. Beside her, Sakura made notes on a medical tablet, her professional focus momentarily overriding 2 decades of unanswered questions. "His chakra integration is unlike anything I've ever seen," Sakura observed, both scientific and personal wonder evident in her voice. "The Nine-Tails' energy is completely synchronized with his own, not just coexisting, truly unified." "It took years," Ino replied, her gaze never leaving Naruto's form. "Working with specialized seal masters in the land of Whirlpool's ruins, reconstructing Uzumaki techniques lost since the clan's destruction." Sakura's hand stilled on her tablet. "Land of Whirlpools? Those ruins are supposedly impenetrable. Deadly traps, collapsed structures, residual chakra storms." "They are," Ino confirmed grimly. "We lost 3 seal experts navigating the outer perimeter alone, but we needed what was buried there. The original templates for the Jinchuriki seals, created before Mito Uzumaki ever came to Konoha. Why? What could possibly be worth? Because the vessels can track Bija chakra signatures." Ino cut her off, voice tight with the memory. "Standard Jinchuriki configurations leak trace amounts of demonic chakra, microscopic, but detectable to their sensory techniques. We needed to create a perfect seal, one that would allow Naruto full access to the Nine-Tails' power without broadcasting his location." Sakura absorbed this, medical mind immediately grasping the implications. "And the children? Were they born before or after the seal modification?" Ino's expression softened almost imperceptibly. "Minako was born just after. Shikaka 3 years later. By then, the integration was stable enough that we could risk a more permanent base of operations. The compound in Iron Country. And Kashino?" Sakura prompted when Ino fell silent. Something complicated flickered across the blonde woman's features. Kashino was unexpected. His conception coincided with a significant event, a direct confrontation with a high-ranking vessel. There were energies involved that we didn't fully understand at the time. Sakura's medical instincts sharpened. "Are you saying his unique abilities, his appearance, they're related to this confrontation?" "We believe so," Ino confirmed, clearly uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation. His empathic capabilities manifested almost from birth. The chakra expressions came later, around his 2nd year. Before Sakura could press further, the laboratory door slid open. Shikamaru entered, his expression grave. "We need Naruto," he announced without preamble. "Now," Ino straightened, instantly alert. "What's happened?" A and B verification teams have confirmed vessel presence at 3 of the locations from your intelligence. 1 team engaged. "We have casualties." The technicians hurriedly disconnected sensors as Naruto stepped away from the examination platform, his face grim but unsurprised. "How many?" 2 dead. 1 critical. The target escaped. Naruto exchanged a look with Ino, a split second of wordless communication born from decades of partnership. "The children? Secure," Shikamaru assured them. "Though there's been a situation with your daughter and the Hokage." Alarm flashed across both parents' faces. "Not that kind of situation," Shikamaru clarified hastily. "Sasuke took her to the monument for questioning. She's fine," apparently gave him quite an earful about doubting your motives. Despite the gravity of the moment, a flicker of pride crossed Naruto's features. "Sounds like Minako. The Hokage has called an emergency security council," Shikamaru continued, already moving toward the door. "Your intelligence is being upgraded from under investigation to actionable. He wants both of you there." As they hurried through the underground complex, Ino moved closer to Shikamaru, pitching her voice for his ears alone. "Our children. The evaluation results? Preliminary findings only, he replied quietly. All three show advanced chakra development, particularly Kushino. Sakura has classified his condition as unique but stable, for now. And the psyche evaluations? The Yamanaka techniques? Shikamaru's expression softened slightly. Your father conducted them personally. He found no evidence of coercion, brainwashing, or mental manipulation. They believe what they've been taught because, as far as we can determine, it's the truth. Relief washed visibly across Ino's features. Thank you. They emerged into a secured wing of the Hokage Tower, a section dedicated to emergency response and military operations. Guards stepped aside as Shikamaru led them into a circular chamber where Konoha's leadership had already assembled. Sasuke stood at the center, still in his practical dark attire rather than formal robes. Around him, arranged in a half-circle, waited the heads of Konoha's primary defense divisions, Niji Hyuga representing A and BU, Kiba Inuzuka for the tracking corps, Shino Aburame from intelligence analysis, Hinata Hyuga as medical response coordinator, and Kakashi Hataki, whose official retirement apparently didn't preclude crisis participation. All eyes turned as Naruto and Ino entered, some wary, some shocked, some carefully neutral. For many present, this was their first direct encounter with the returned exiles. Kiba's reaction was the least restrained. Holy shit, he breathed, enhanced canine senses confirming what his eyes struggled to accept. It really is you two. Later, Inuzuka, Sasuke cut off potential reunions with cold efficiency. We have confirmation of hostile presence on Konoha territory. 3 vessels engaged by ANBU teams at coordinates provided by our returning assets. He gestured to a large tactical display where red markers blinked at multiple locations across the 5 nations map. Engagement results? Naruto asked, moving directly to the map with the focused intensity of someone accustomed to military briefings. 2 ANBU dead at the Land of Rivers site, Niji reported clinically, though tension lined his scarred face. The vessel displayed capabilities beyond standard shinobi parameters. Chakra absorption, heightened reflexes, and apparent immunity to genjutsu techniques. Consistent with mid-to-vessel profiles, Ino confirmed. Her transition from uncertain returnee to intelligence operative so seamless it drew raised eyebrows from several council members. They'll have increased defensive measures now that they know we've compromised their network. Which brings us to our immediate strategic concerns, Sasuke stated, activating a secondary display showing a topographical map of Fire Country. According to your intelligence, the gateway ritual requires 5 primary anchor points plus a central convergence location. 3 of these anchor points are within Fire Country borders. The ritual can't proceed without all 5 anchors plus the convergence point properly aligned, Naruto explained, moving to the display and indicating specific geographical features. Each anchor must be maintained by a high-level vessel for the full duration of the celestial alignment, approximately 72 hours. So we target the anchors, Kiba suggested, the tactical simplicity appealing to his direct nature. Take out one, the whole ritual fails. It's not that simple, Ino countered, shaking her head. They'll have redundancies, backups positioned to step in if primary vessels are neutralized. And the anchors themselves are likely already prepared with defensive seals and environmental modifications. More importantly, Naruto added gravely, direct assault on the anchor points plays into their strategy. The ritual feeds on chakra, any chakra, including that used in attacks against them. Traditional combat approaches actually strengthen the gateway formation. A tense silence followed this revelation. Decades of shinobi tactical doctrine, based on overwhelmingly powerful ninjutsu, enhanced taijutsu, and sophisticated genjutsu, suddenly rendered not just ineffective but actively counterproductive. Then what do you propose? Sasuke asked, his mismatched gaze boring into Naruto with intensity that bordered on physical force. Since you've had 20 years to develop countermeasures, Naruto met his stare without flinching. A 2-pronged approach. First, we deploy specialized sealing teams to each anchor point, not to attack the vessels, but to establish counter-ritual matrices that disrupt the gateway formation from within. And second? Niji prompted when Naruto paused. We target the convergence point directly, Ino continued, stepping forward to indicate a location in the map's center, a nondescript region of wilderness between Fire Country and the Land of Rivers. with a specialized strike team carrying a purification seal capable of neutralizing the dimensional breach. This specialized strike team, Sasuke pressed. I assume you have specific personnel requirements in mind? Naruto nodded gravely. The team must include at least one Uzumaki bloodline seal master, one Yamanaka-trained mental defense specialist, and he hesitated fractionally, one Uchiha with fully evolved visual prowess. The implications hung heavy in the air. Not just any Uchiha, of which there were precisely two in existence, Sasuke himself and his daughter Sarada, but one with fully evolved visual abilities. The Hokage. You're proposing I personally participate in this operation, Sasuke stated flatly. Leaving Konoha without its leader during a crisis situation, the convergence point will be the epicenter of dimensional instability, Naruto explained, his tone suggesting he'd anticipated this objection. Only the Rinnegan can navigate the perceptual distortions that will surround it. Without those eyes, the sealing team won't even be able to locate the exact coordinates. Tension crackled between them, former teammates, now divided by 20 years of separate paths, yet potentially forced together again by circumstance. Assuming we accept your strategic assessment, Shino interjected, his analytical mind focusing on practical matters. There remains the question of the sealing teams. You specified Uzumaki-trained seal masters. Besides yourself, who qualifies? Naruto exchanged another of those loaded glances with Ino, the kind that spoke volumes without words. After a moment of silent communication, he answered, Minako has been trained in the foundational techniques. She's young, but capable. And Kashino, despite his age, has an intuitive grasp of sealing principles that surpasses even prodigy standards. You cannot seriously be suggesting we deploy children to combat positions, Hinata objected, her quiet voice nonetheless carrying absolute conviction. Especially a 4-year-old, regardless of his abilities. Of course not, Ino replied sharply. Kashino would remain in a secured location, with a chakra transmission linked to the field teams. His role would be purely supportive, not direct engagement. And Minako? Kakashi asked, speaking for the first time. His visible eye carried 2 decades of unanswered questions, yet his tone remained professionally focused. Secondary support only, Naruto stated firmly. Under direct supervision of experienced Jonin, Sasuke's eyes narrowed, studying his former teammate with calculated assessment. You've designed this entire counter-strategy around your family's specific abilities. Convenient, not convenient, Naruto corrected, a flash of his old fire breaking through his composed exterior. Necessary. The Otsutsuki threat targets bloodline abilities specifically because certain combinations can counter their techniques. Why do you think they attacked the Uzumaki clan first, generations ago? Why the Uchiha massacre was manipulated from the shadows? This provocative statement sent a ripple of tension through the room. Sasuke's expression darkened dangerously. You're claiming the Uchiha massacre was connected to this conspiracy? His voice carried deadly quiet. We have evidence suggesting Otsutsuki influence in multiple historical events. Ino interjected diplomatically, sensing dangerous ground, including several clan decimations over the centuries. The full intelligence briefing contains our historical analysis. Before the situation could escalate further, Shikamaru stepped forward. Perhaps we should focus on immediate tactical concerns. If the timeline provided is accurate, we have less than 3 weeks to prepare our countermeasures. Verification of historical patterns, while important, can be addressed in parallel with active defense preparations. His practical intervention diffused some of the tension, though Sasuke's gaze remained fixed on Naruto with dangerous intensity. I'll require a complete demonstration of these sealing techniques before committing Konoha forces to this strategy, the Hokage stated finally. Practical proof, not theoretical briefings. Agreed, Naruto nodded, seemingly relieved to return to practical matters. We'll need a secure training ground with natural chakra flow indicators, preferably isolated from civilian areas. Training Ground 44 has been decommissioned since the war, Niji suggested. The Forest of Death sits on a natural chakra nexus point and remains environmentally isolated. Perfect, Ino confirmed. We'll need approximately 24 hours to prepare the demonstration protocols. You have 12, Sasuke countered coldly. And you'll prepare under A and BU observation. With that declaration, the Hokage turned to the assembled council. Deploy verification teams to all remaining locations from their intelligence. Maximum security protocols. No engagement unless absolutely necessary. His mismatched eyes swept the room with commanding authority. If these vessels are as dangerous as claimed, we approach with full caution. Observation only. Chairs scraped as the council members rose, each already mentally calculating the resources and preparations required for their divisions. As they filed out, many cast lingering glances at Naruto and Ino, former friends and comrades, now returned as near strangers with warnings of apocalyptic threats. Soon, only Sasuke, Shikamaru, and the two returnees remained in the briefing room. There's more, Sasuke stated rather than asked, his penetrating gaze moving between them. Something you've withheld from the general briefing. Naruto hesitated, then nodded slowly. Yes. Something we couldn't include in written intelligence or discuss in open council. Why? Because, Ino replied, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper. We have reason to believe there's a vessel embedded in Konoha's leadership. Someone with access to classified information and security protocols. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Shikamaru's normally lazy posture straightened with alert tension. You're claiming one of the council members we just briefed could be compromised? Or someone in their direct reporting chain, Naruto clarified. We don't have confirmation of the specific individual, just indicators that high-level intelligence has been consistently leaked over the past 5 years. Sasuke's face revealed nothing, though the air around him crackled with barely contained energy. And you chose to withhold this rather crucial information until now because? Because identifying and neutralizing a high-level vessel requires specialized techniques that we've only recently perfected, Ino explained, her intelligence training evident in her methodical delivery. Techniques that require both Yamanaka mental invasion and Uzumaki sealing simultaneously. Techniques you developed, Sasuke observed, suspicion evident. Techniques we nearly died developing, Naruto corrected sharply. Do you think we spent 20 years on vacation, Sasuke? That we abandoned everything we loved for some elaborate ruse? The challenge hung between them. Not just the words, but the weight of 2 decades of divergent experiences, of trust fractured and potentially beyond repair. Surprisingly, it was Shikamaru who broke the tense standoff. We'll need to establish a secure communication protocol, he stated practically. Inner circle only, the Hokage, myself, potentially Sakura and Kakashi. Unless you have reason to suspect any of us specifically, Naruto shook his head. Our suspicions focus on newer leadership additions, those who rose to prominence after the war. Individuals with unusual access or influence patterns. That still leaves several possibilities, Shikamaru noted, mental calculations already running through suspects and scenarios. We'll begin systematic verification once the sealing demonstration is complete, Ino assured him. The procedure requires significant preparation, and will need a secure facility with specific containment capabilities. Sasuke had been watching this exchange in silence, his expression unreadable. Finally, he straightened, decision apparently reached. You'll have your demonstration and your verification procedure, he stated with Hokage authority. But understand this clearly. If at any point I determine your actions threaten Konoha's security, I will not hesitate to neutralize the threat, regardless of our history. The warning was delivered with cold precision, not angry, not emotional, but the absolute certainty of a leader who had spent 2 decades placing village security above personal feelings. Naruto met his gaze steadily. I would expect nothing less from the Hokage, he replied, respect evident despite the implicit threat. But when this is over, when the gateway is sealed and the immediate danger past, you and I have 20 years of unfinished business to address. As friends, not as Hokage and returning exile, something flickered in Sasuke's mismatched eyes. Perhaps recognition of the stubborn determination that had characterized their relationship since childhood. Without acknowledging the statement, he turned toward the door. 12 hours, he reminded them over his shoulder. Not a minute more. As the Hokage departed, Shikamaru lingered, studying the 2 returners with calculating assessment. He's trying to hate you, he observed bluntly. Both of you. It would be easier for him if he could. And you? Ino asked, meeting the gaze of her former teammate and childhood friend. Are you trying to hate us too, Shikamaru? A ghost of his old lazy smile flickered across the strategist's face. Too troublesome to maintain hatred for 20 years. I settled for extreme irritation instead. Despite everything, Naruto found himself smiling, the expression transforming his weathered features, momentarily revealing the boy he had once been. We missed you too, you know. Shikamaru studied them both a moment longer, then sighed with familiar exasperation. Your daughter, by the way, is apparently terrorizing the ANBU guards assigned to your quarters. Something about demonstrating her totally harmless shadow clone technique that somehow managed to short out 3 security seals and trigger 2 perimeter alarms. Ino closed her eyes in maternal exasperation. That sounds about right. Kushino asked if he could borrow some feelings from the medical staff because, and I quote, the angry ones taste spicier than the worried ones. Also normal. Naruto confirmed with the resigned tone of a parent long accustomed to explaining unusual children. As long as he didn't actually absorb anything without permission, Shikamaru shook his head, somewhere between amazed and disturbed. You two have created some truly terrifying offspring. I'm not sure whether to be impressed or concerned for the future of shinobi genetics. Both is the usual reaction, Ino assured him with the first genuine smile she'd shown since their return. As they departed the briefing room to prepare for the demonstration, the weight of 20 years seemed momentarily lighter. Not gone, perhaps never truly gone, but shifted enough to allow something like their old connection to breathe through the cracks. Outside, afternoon sun bathed Konoha in deceptively peaceful light, while beneath the surface, machinery of war ground into motion once more. In secure facilities across the village, classified alerts went out to specialized units. In the Hokage's private office, Sasuke stared at the intelligence scroll, memorizing every detail with his Sharingan's perfect recall. And in the diplomatic quarters, 3 extraordinary children waited for parents who had carried the burden of the world's salvation for longer than they'd been alive. The pieces were moving. The endgame approached. And through it all, the unseen vessel walked Konoha's streets with a human face, watching, waiting, reporting back to masters beyond dimension who had waited 20 patient years for their gateway to open once more.